Tell me when. Okay, thank you all. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for the City of Hendersonville on October 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And we're going to begin our meeting as we typically do. That's with a prayer and a pledge. We have several folks here in attendance, a lot of folks from Leadership Sumner. Appreciate you all being here. I'm going to get to hang out with you all a little bit tomorrow as well. For now, though, let's please go ahead and bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together, and thank you for the gift, talents, and abilities you provided to us. Help us to use those to do your work, not just here, but after we leave here, and as we go out in the community, as we continue to live in this city. And thank you for this city and this state and for this country that we live in, and thank you for everything that you provided us. Also, thank you for the people who protect us near and far away, and also thank you for continual healing for so many people who are suffering right now. We especially want you to look out for Steve Luther, Bob Rudolph and his family, Pat Campbell and his family, and John Shoemaker, his family, as well as folks that affect us deeply and that we may want to remain nameless at this time. Again, thank you for what you've done and provided for us here in front of us, and help us to do your work and use the wisdom you've given us to make good decisions for those around us and for your sons and daughters. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We won't do roll call. I entertain a motion to approve our agenda. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Hayes. I want to make an amendment. One thing is that, we need to acknowledge on item 8 the waiving of the 2-week rule. So that's certainly going to be part of this motion here. And I would like to add a report. We'll make it number 4 because I think we're going to have number 3. Well, let's add 2 reports. Capital projects from Chairman Robertson, and number 4, I'd like to give a report from our fire hall committee that we set up. Oh, it's been about 3 or 4 months now. So I need, I'm going to make that motion to add 3 and 4 under reports. I need a second, please. We have a second. Can we go ahead and vote on that one, and then we'll come back to, I think, we've got a couple other ones. All those in favor of those two, adding those 2 items, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Alderman Brown.
You did it.
I did it?
Yep, number 8 needs to be added.
Okay. We also, without objection, let's add Alderman Collins to item number 3 as a sponsor. Any other items that we need to add or change or subtract? Alderman Petrelli, hold on one second. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you add me to item 3 as a sponsor?
Sure, we can do that. Without objection, we will do that. Okay. And make sure we have everything that we need at this point. Alderman Cunningham.
You can add me as well. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
Without objection, we will do that as well. Okay, so at this point, we're just voting on the agenda as amended, just that one time, which has 2 parts, and that is adding a report from the Capital Projects Committee from Chairman Robertson as item 3 under brief committee reports. Item 4 under brief committee reports is our Fire Hall Committee. I don't really remember what the name of that was. Okay, I think we all know what we're talking about. Okay, that's good news. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, just thank you. On item 3, you might as well add all of us as a sponsor, I guess. But if you would add my name as well, that I would be greatly appreciated.
Without any objection, I am doing that now. You following us?
Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Campbell.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Campbell, without objection,
I spoke
we'll
about
add
that
you.
4 months ago.
Alderman Peterson, would you like to be added to item number 3 as a sponsor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Without objection, we'll do that. Alderman Dixon, I see your light turned on. Would you like to be added as a sponsor? Without objection, we will do that. Okay. So we're back on the main motion as amended. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. We have an agenda. We have no presentations. We do have a public hearing. Alderman Edwards, would you like to make a motion about our rules for public hearings?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that the public hearings be under the same rules as citizens' comments.
We have a motion from Alderman Edwards, a second from Alderman Cunningham. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. So first, we have public hearing for ordinance 2021-34. This to hear comments on a request by Jack Patel to rezone .27 acres from suburban residential medium density, which is SR2, to general commercial, which is GC. We have nobody signed up for that. Yes, we have nobody signed up for that. So we're going to go on to the next public hearing. And this is for Resolution 2021-47. This is to hear comments on a request by 10 Holdings to amend the Indian Lake Village Final Development Plan to add multifamily residential to the list of permitted uses for Lot 16. Before I get to the names on there, I want to read you what the rules are that we just adopted. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per individual, which time is non-transferable to other speakers. All comments are to be directed to the presiding officer, that's me, not the aldermen, city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures. In this situation, it has to support or oppose this one item. But the motives of those with differing views shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for public office shall not be allowed. We have 4 people signed up. The first one is John Evans of Cumberland Drive. John.
Thank you, Mayor and Alderman, for allowing me to come up here again and talk to you about my favorite subject. I'm sorry you limited the public hearing to 5 minutes because I could talk about this subject probably for 2 or 3 hours. And I know that wouldn't do anybody any good. But just to kind of get to the brass tacks, I think I've spoken to most of you about this and about identical projects in other areas. And first of all, I never met the developers till tonight. They're really nice guys, and I'm sure if I were them, I'd be doing the same thing. So don't have anything disparaging to say about anybody. Just appreciate all of you doing the job that you do. What my problem is the same one that I have with each one of the high-density developments that are proposed here. And those are quality of life issues in Hendersonville. We have, our culture is changing. With each time that we add another 250 apartments, our infrastructure is obviously full. It's overtaxed. I know all of you drive on the same roads I do every day. I'm not representing anybody's interest in any way, shape, or form except for that 68% of Hendersonville voters who do not want any more high-density housing. I don't have any other bone to pick with anybody except I don't believe this is a good idea, and I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what the plan is. Don't know what the vision is. Where do we stop? First of all, just a point that I'd like to make. Using the planning department's figures, and figures don't lie, but liars figures, so take this any way you want to. 1,750 more cars on the road based on the number that planning typically uses for trips in and out per residence. If you multiply that by 10 seconds for each car that's going to have to go around that new roundabout we're going to have, you come up with somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 hours a day, 4.86 hours that it'll take for that many cars to negotiate the roundabout. And if you don't like that number, let's half it and say it takes them all 5 seconds each to make it around the roundabout. That's only 2.5 hours. So it does make a difference every time we add another concentrated, high-density housing or commercial unit. Understood that if there was commercial there would be more traffic there as well. Don't really like the structure. I think y'all are probably going to negotiate that a little bit if that happens. I don't like the lower brick amounts. I don't like the fact that there's not enough parking for the facility they're going to build. They're overlapping onto other areas, which, if that's not the epitome of overtaxed infrastructure and parking area, I don't know what it is. The other thing that I really got a problem with, and I sent all of you an email today, I just found out about this last week. Nobody knows about this because of the way it's being done. It's a change to the rules for that development. It's not a notice of a rezone, which it absolutely is. You're changing 8+ acres from commercial to residential. That's the same as any other rezone as far as I'm concerned. It does the same thing, has the same effect. Another question I've got, does that only apply to that parcel of property or anything in this development for a future period? I don't know of any benefit to the city. I know that, again, figures don't lie, but depending on who you ask, there may be a positive result to the city in tax revenue. There may not be. Just depends on who you ask. If you look at the trump card on this whole thing, hate to use the word Trump because that's so controversial, but 68% of the people in Hendersonville don't want this. So please listen to the people of Hendersonville. Thank you very much.
John, thank you. Amy LaSurf, Evergreen Circle.
Good evening. I'm Amy LaSurf. I live at 220 Evergreen Circle. So yesterday I did some research, and the results of my research was that on a Monday afternoon at 3 p.m., it took me 26 minutes to drive 1.5 miles from Hobby Lobby to Walgreens. And so I sat in this traffic and I began to think about this resolution, because who doesn't sit in traffic and think? Not much else to do but sit in traffic. Anyway, there's no reason it should take 26 minutes to go 1.5 miles. So I'm here to oppose this resolution, which is obviously to amend the list of permitted uses. The developer knew what was on the permitted use when they acquired the property, and this is becoming a real issue. Developers buy land and expect to have the zoning change to their liking. I won't speak about the cars. I had a whole thing about cars, but the previous speaker spoke about cars, so I'm just going to leave that out. It's also going to put more strain on our schools, which are they're already stretched thin. I haven't even mentioned the need for additional safety personnel, such as police, fire, and EMS. This will be in the same general area as the Forest Park development that is going to add an additional 626 homes to this area. So, all that to say, please, please put a stop to all this additional burden on our city until the infrastructure can be addressed. These roads cannot handle all this growth. Not opposed to growth. I support responsible growth. Let me say that again. I support responsible growth. To borrow a quote from a very wise county commissioner, growth does not pay for itself. In the end, the taxpayers are going to be the ones who are paying for this growth. So I'm respectfully but firmly asking you to vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Amy, thank you. Kay Brooks, Trousdale Drive.
My name is Kay Brooks. I live at 123 Trousdale. I'll apologize on the front end. I've had a bad day, and this resolution does not help my attitude at all. I would have hoped that you all would have learned a lesson from our meeting at the Hendersonville High School. We're done. We're full. We don't want any more development. We've got to catch up. And this is not going to help. This is going to be a huge detriment to our city. It's not our responsibility. It's not our responsibility to provide housing for escapees from Nashville's high housing prices. It's not. Your responsibility is to ensure the quality of life in this city for the citizens we have. Focus on that. These developments are a net tax loss, which is a tax increase for the rest of us. We're going to need more schools. That's 80% of our budget. And Gallatin is galloping off on this stuff. Somebody's got to put the brakes on. I'm counting on you guys to do this. EMS can't handle the population we already have, and you want to add more people, or you're considering adding more people. You know, the developers don't care about our EMS needs. They're not going to be here to deal with, why the ambulance is late or why they can't get somebody to save a family member's life. I am just about up to here with the Planning Commission and this board's efforts to pad the wallets of developers at my expense, at our expense. You're just on my last nerve about this. I'm sorry, that's just the reality. Like I said, I've had a bad day, and this is just the cherry on top. No more rezoning, No more amendments to rezoning. Let's stop everything, catch up, do what needs to be done. You know, everything's a great idea until you have to maintain it, and we need to start focusing on maintaining it. So please, vote no.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have approval of September 14th, 2021 meeting minutes. We have a motion from Alderman Hayes and a second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of approving the September 14th meeting minutes as they were provided in your packet, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we have approval of the September 28th, 2021 meeting minutes. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Hayes. Okay, thank you. Alderman Campbell.
I was absent. I need to abstain from that vote, sir. Thank you.
From the previous one?
The September 28th one. I was out.
From the one we're on, right, okay. I do want to ask that we make an amendment. Again, we're just amending, we're not amending the action we took, we're amending what is in the minutes. So I want you to turn to page 13, please. You see a little bit beyond midway down, the paragraph that starts, there was a brief discussion about the effective date and if the Finance Department will be able to put the increase into effect by October 1st, 2021, if the amendment passed. That needs to be put the increase into effect on the first pay period of October 2021. Okay. And then in the paragraph above that, that needs to be there as well. That's the action we took, and the minutes need to reflect that. There's one other item. The next paragraph, without objection, that needs to be removed entirely. So what we're asking is, the paragraph that begins with Brown moved, seconded by Collins to change the effective date from January 1st, 2021 to October 1st, that should say to the first pay period of October 2021. The next paragraph should be into effect on the first pay period of October 2021, comma, if the amendment passed, and then we remove the following paragraph without objection. I'll make that motion. I'll second it. A second from Alderman Hayes. Alderman Cunningham, do you want to discuss this, or is there something else?
No, I need to abstain.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. And I believe Alderman Robertson is going to abstain. Any other discussion on this proposed amendment? So we have an amendment. We need to vote on that. All in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We have Alderman Robertson abstaining, Alderman Cunningham, Alderman Campbell. Alderman Petrelli, do you abstain on that? Alderman Petrelli, do you abstain on that one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now we're back on the main motion, which is approving the amendments of September 28th, 2021. And we do have a motion on that.
Yes, Waters and Hayes.
Waters and Hayes, okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Alderman Robertson, I believe you abstained. Alderman Cunningham abstained. Alderman Campbell abstained. I believe Alderman Petrelli abstained. That passes unanimously with four abstentions. Thank you all. Now we have citizen comments. I read the rules a few minutes ago. We have 4 people that are signed up for that. First one is John Evans.
I had to get here early to get the first one.
10 a.m. was a little bit early, though.
If you'd let me talk for an hour last time, you wouldn't be bothered by me again. Couple of things. First one that I didn't get to say about the rezoning. I really wish someone would look at a way to make the impact fees static, because again, every time we talk about one of these, the discussion becomes about the money that the developer is going to contribute or some other emolument that the developer is going to provide rather than the merits of the project itself. I really wish we could get away from that. Next item, term limits. I heard a couple of more sponsors jump on it. Sounds like it's pretty popular. And nationally, the term limits favorability is 82%. So we're at 83%, according to polls that I've done. So we're right in there with everybody else. As far as what they do that are good and what they do that are bad, and there's both. Believe me, there's both. The first thing is a perception of undue influence. And y'all have all suffered from that. You've had people talk to you about undue influence and accuse you of all sorts of things. I've had it too. I've been a mayor and an alderman. Elections are not term limits because you've got the power of the incumbency that always influences an election. The power of incumbency creates a perception of power that a lot of people get jealous of. Again, perceptions. Perceptions of alignment with the wrong people. That's what gets you accused of emoluments and things like that. I was admonished earlier today not to use the word bribes. So anything that's good that you might receive in exchange for encouragement to vote for something happens when the perception is that you have more power than you should have. And you have relationships with people of power, and you have fewer relationships with your constituents, which is what I did the polls for. Why not? Not term limits. You lose institutional knowledge every time you push out somebody with a lot of knowledge. Because you do that, and I call it like I see it, you concentrate more power in the executive branch because they've got the institutional knowledge. You concentrate more power with the staff because they have the institutional knowledge, and you're learning. Your learning curve is a year or more. Each of you can judge for yourself how long that is. And it'd be better to retain that. And we all know that lame ducks have no allegiance to voters. They know they're going out. That last term, they're free to do whatever suits their mind. And what you do, you also substitute long-term projects and pet peeves like these that I've got for short-term objectives. And that's back again. The foresight that you have as someone with a term limit is limited to your term of office, obviously. But why should you vote for term limits? Because the people want it. 83% want it. And if the people want that in a representative democracy, then that's what you really should be bound to do, is what the people want. That's why I did the polls. That's why I keep giving you numbers. And like I said, numbers don't lie, especially polls. I didn't influence them. The answer to the whole thing is to be as responsive as you possibly can so people don't think bad thoughts about you. That way term limits are not as important. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Amy LaSurf, Evergreen Circle.
But you're stuck with me again. So I just want to keep this brief. I want to say that I am fully behind this. I would like for you to support this with all that you can, because it's what the previous speaker said. It's what the people want. Thank you for your time.
Amy, thank you. 15 seconds, impressive. Kimberly Overton, Creekside Court.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. All right. So I see that a lot of you have jumped on board with this since the last time, so I'm happy to see that. I am going to still continue to speak, though. I wanted to take the opportunity to speak once again tonight on the issue of term limits. I'd first like to thank Alderman Waters. I hear that you have been the driving force in bringing this back before the board. Also like to thank former Ward 5 Alderman Darrell Woodcock, who originally brought it forth, and also Beth Wettengale, who 2 years ago took the initiative as a concerned citizen to give the citizens of Hendersonville a voice on this important issue. I would urge all of you to please support this resolution. A no vote, at least in my mind, simply says that you do not believe us to be intelligent enough to make our own decisions, or that we don't know what's good for us, when really nothing could be further from the truth. We are more than capable. In fact, it is by our decisions that each of you are sitting up there tonight. We elected you to represent us, not to rule us. Your job is to listen to your constituents who in good faith have put you in office and to act accordingly. You have the power this evening to use your vote to give a voice back to the people of Hendersonville, or you can use your vote to smother our collective voices. But one thing is for certain, if you choose the latter, many of us will not forget this on Election Day. And if our local elections showed us anything in 2020, it is that a grassroots movement of, by, and for the people can and will make a difference. Thank you.
Kimberly, thank you. Beth Wettengale.
Hi, I'm Beth Wettengale. I live at 594 Indian Lake Road. I'm standing here tonight, just as I did back in December of 2019, asking you to allow the first hurdle to be cleared for the citizens of this town to vote for term limits. This should be the easiest vote that you have tonight. Why? Because it's not about your personal beliefs of term limits. It is nothing personal at all, actually, about your position. It's something that you're not having to guess what your constituents want. It's very, very easy because you can provide a direct channel for the 41,229 Hendersonville voters to reshape this city's charter if they want it. If they want it, those 4 words. The power in the people. Fun fact, everybody's talking about growth and everything. Just looking back from my notes from 2 years as I was researching this, and also collecting new information today. Just a fun fact, there are 4,400 more registered voters in this town than less than 2 years ago, which is astronomical. Our growth has exploded. But as I remember, some of the opposing comments from 2 years ago is that that allowing citizens to vote on this issue is an infringement of the democratic process. Did you hear what I just said? Those two things don't belong in the same sentence. Allowing citizens to vote, an infringement of the democratic process. Please explain that to me, because I could not disagree more. And not to be negative about this, but allowing voters to speak at the ballot box is the most democratic position that you as an elected official can do. We're not blazing a trail here. Gallatin has already allowed their citizens to vote. They spoke at the ballot box. 78% of them voted for term limits. So while we're not pioneers here tonight, if we decide to vote to do this, we could be trendsetters, and I think that that would excite everybody. So please vote yes on this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Beth, thank you. We have no consent agenda. We're on to ordinances and resolutions. The first one is second and final reading, ordinance 2021-34. This is an ordinance rezoning the property located on the east side of New Shackle Island Road and the south side of Iris Drive in Hendersonville. Alderman Peterson. You're on.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to clarify this ordinance.
Feel free, but I need a motion first.
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Peterson, a second from Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Peterson, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if we have access to the map for this. I didn't ask for it, so I'm just going to talk about this. It's for Subway, and it's going in on New Shackle Island Road. And this parcel in question for this ordinance is the lot directly behind where the subway is going to be built. The Planning Commission rezoned this because it's got a creek on it, and really no structures can be built. And I might need to get Director Free to help me out with this, our planning director. But Subway wants to use this lot only for parking and not for a structure. And I just wanted to let people know why this rezoning was changed for Subway on this ordinance.
So Keith, as you come up, I'll suggest that everybody turns to page 24 it's under tab number 1. Go ahead, Keith.
Yes, page 24 shows that image. The current corner lot that's right there, sandwiched between the CPA office behind it, and then across the street is the Dunkin' Donuts location. So this property that Alderman Peterson was talking about that's being rezoned is just to the south of it. I think it's maybe a 0.27 acre piece of property. The other property is currently already zone commercial, and this kind of helps with a big part of this property is actually eat up with a flood easement or a floodway and flood zoning. So, but portion of it, I'm not for sure A site plan hasn't been officially submitted, so there could be a portion of that new building that's on there, but the majority of it is for the parking and for the drive. And then to keep in mind as well that this is, the intention is for this to be a subway, but in any kind of straight rezoning, they're not held to that. So once the property's zoned commercial, then any use, it's allowable use in commercial, would be allowed there. So that is, and I can answer any question. I don't know if there might be a representative of the development here.
Go ahead, Alderman Peterson, anything else?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. See, Keith, you can hang out there for just a second. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, thank you. I did have several questions, but you've answered several questions, Alderman Peterson has, and yourself, and I appreciate that. My only other question is, and I was looking through here, is there any ingress, egress opening onto New Shackle Island Road? And if there is, I didn't see it, but there could be, or could not. I don't know.
Yeah. Alderman Skidmore, that's determined at the time that they do the site plan.
Right.
That they'll have to do that, and our Public Works Director and engineers will take a look at that once they submit it. I believe during the process of when we've talked to them about a potential development at this location, I'm pretty sure that was limited to a right-in, right-out only, not a full access off of New Shackle.
Well, if you would, and I appreciate you telling me that, but you can relay to your staff as well as to the developers if they're here. Are you all here tonight, Subway, or?
Yes.
All right, if you let them know, I have a concern about having an all-access going left and right on New Shackle Island Road. As we all have heard tonight eloquently, we have a traffic problem in Hendersonville, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Alderman Skidmore, could you hold on one second?
Yeah, sure
Okay.
can.
Without objection, we're going to allow this representative of Subway to speak, or really to answer questions.
Right.
But before you do anything, please identify yourself as soon as Alderman Skidmore asks you a question.
Allison Turner with Greenlid Design. We're the civil engineers, site developers for this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, if you would relay that, and I know you'll do have they done a traffic study? Have you done one? That comes with a site.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The location of that piece of property is encumbered quite a bit by some buffers that have to be in place because of the stream. So a right-in, right-out would probably be our only option in that location anyway.
Okay.
So I think the access is predominantly going to come off the side street.
All right, well,
And there's no interconnection across that creek as well. That's why that little piece is just hanging out there on the end.
Right, okay. All right, well, I appreciate that, but anyway, if you all would, just keep that in mind. And the reason why I think Alderman Cunningham would probably agree with me. I don't know if it's a red light right there that needs to be looked at, but the one on Iris Drive of Ward 3 and Ward 6 right there, because New Shackle goes down, the main drag there. One side's 3 and one side's 6. At this point, I don't know what it's going to be after redistricting. But anyway, my point is, and there's a lot of children that actually, believe it or not, walk down that street. And I'm scared to death even when I drive it, because especially when school's out. So that's all my questions. They've answered most of the others, but we'll be looking at it, as aldermen, not as a voting block of aldermen, but as once construction, you start gearing towards that and go to the site plan, we'll be looking for that, because that piece has been vacant for quite some time.
Right. It's not a very large piece
Right.
either, so.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Allison, tell us again the name of the firm.
Greenlid Design.
Thank you. Okay. Stick close if you could, please. Alderman Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Director Free, could I ask you a question? Just remind us all, what was the vote on this piece of property and on this with Planning Commission?
I was just looking at it, but I didn't memorize it. Let me see here. I could tell you.
Okay.
One more page.
Was it 8-0, Lee?
8-0.
I think it was.
Yeah, 8-8-8-0.
8-0, unanimous. Thank you.
Yeah. Of the members that were there that evening, yes.
Alderman Hayes, anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hayes. Thank you, Mr. Free. Alderman Brown.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a housekeeping on page 24, and Director Free said this, that it was across the street from Dunkin' Donuts. It is actually across the street from Yokohama. Dunkin' Donuts is up the street a little bit, just because I go to both places, I happen to know that.
Yeah, that is true, that is true.
That's just clean, that should be either Yokohama or Sonic, something like that.
I must have had donuts on my mind. I am a little hungry, so.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. Allison, I have a question. Now, that parking lot is going to be facing New Shackle. Now, the corner lot, that's where the actual subway will be constructed?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the piece that's being rezoned will add to the total, and it will not be used. I mean, the majority of it isn't already encumbered, but it will add for some water quality and some issues like that. It just helps the overall site. All the layout and all of that will be finalized once rezoning is in place and we submit a site plan.
Okay, and then the structure itself is going to be a one-story building?
I believe so, yes.
And it's going to set back a bit, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I had gotten some questions from the Owens, who have the CPA firm right next to it there. So, and I know they talked to Keith Free about it too. So, thank you for answering my questions. Appreciate it.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Free. Okay, so for this area in question, because of the stream buffer, nothing would turn into here ever, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any type of contingencies on leaving some of this tree line for buffering from the people behind them?
It will be, and Greenwood may be able to address that, and we'll address that at the site plan, but typically that probably will require a stream buffer that typically doesn't allow you to just remove all those trees. But I'll let her maybe address that
Keith
specific.
Allison, magically, a slide has appeared up here to help us out.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, the stream, part of the issues with that little piece is that it is encumbered by a buffer. And that buffer is a non-disturb buffer for at least a portion of it.
Right, so how deep is it?
Anything down into the creek area will be left undisturbed.
So there's no buffer in front of the creek? 10 foot, 20 foot? I mean, like, what is the actual buffer?
I think it's 30 feet,
So it's 30 feet.
right? Or, yeah.
So trees will be marked to not be taken down, essentially?
Well, there'll be a big orange fence along the buffer line so that nobody can get in there to disturb it, because that becomes a state, that's a state issue from Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation.
I understand.
And there will be a requirement, because there'll still be SR2 property to the south, so there will be a required buffer that would be required there as well.
Okay, so then,
That probably falls within that same area.
okay. So basically, the building's probably going to straddle this a little bit so that the parking can be out front. That's the goal?
That's correct. Probably with a drive-through all the way around the back is probably what'll end up happening.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Petrelli, thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor of second and final reading of ordinance 2021-34, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're on. I'm sorry, Alderman Skidmore voting no. Anybody else? That passes with majority. Next, we have Resolution 2021-47. This is a resolution to approve a revised final development plan for Indian Lake Village to revise the layout of Phase 3G, Area 9, and to add multifamily residential to the list of permitted uses for Lot 46. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Hayes. I need to speak real quick to explain and give my disclaimer that I typically give. The reason I'm on the sponsor there is a policy that I have since I came into office. We have to have a sponsor for something to be considered by the board. I mean, an alderman, and the sponsor has to be one of the 13 of us. we have some items that the state requires us to consider. So if it doesn't have a sponsor and we don't consider it, we can get in big trouble. So typically what I do, when we have items that have to be considered by the board, we can't just ignore them, they have to be considered by the board, is I ask our representative of the Planning Commission, who happens to be an alderman, I ask that representative if he would like to sponsor it, he or she would like to sponsor it. If they decline, then I go to the people whose ward that property is in. If they decline, then I do it. Somebody's got to do it. And in this case, I am the sponsor. By no means does the sponsorship on this one, or actually the previous one, Alderman Peterson, represent anything as far as favorability and support for that item. Somebody's got to sponsor it. We've got to consider it. We don't have a choice. We do not have to approve it, but we have got to consider it. Alderman Waters, did you want to speak on this?
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
First, let me say that on behalf of my colleagues, thank y'all for coming tonight. You really make a difference to me, and I know you make a difference to the board. Thank you. We need more people. Mr. Chairman, before I'd like to suspend the rules and ask the planning director to stand up and help me out here.
We don't have to suspend to hear from him, but we might as well suspend the rules to hear from representatives of the development. I suspect that we probably will want to do that at some point in the near future.
Okay.
So without objection, we're going to hear from our planning director, but we're also going to hear from representatives of the application.
That'd be fine.
Keith, go ahead. Alderman Waters.
Thank you. Keith, we went over this project in the general committee a few weeks ago, and I stated when it come to planning, making changes like we have tonight, I'm lost, okay? So if I sound redundant, please forgive me, will you?
Yes, sir.
Let me start by looking at page 40. And if anybody wants to join me on looking at page 40, feel free to do so. Let me read the last paragraph, if you don't mind. The overall ILV plan development is currently restricted to a total of 1,200 residential units. Of those, up to 600 may be rental units. All rental units entitlements have been built out. So the number of allowed rental units now stands at 0. 176 of the single-family entitlement remains unbuilt. In the proposed amendment, the applicant is proposing to increase the total number of allowed rental units from 0 to 247. So, if my memory serves me correctly, Indian Lake and Indian Lake Village was originally approved to allow 600 rental units, and all of those have been built out. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. But if this revised plan is approved, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it will be close to 900 rental units. Am I close?
Yes, 847, with that 247 remaining being just on this individual lot.
That's close, okay.
That's right.
So when I read this material, it appears to me, and it's just my opinion, Keith, if a developer has difficulty selling or marketing his property, our answer cannot and should never be always to just allow the developer to build more apartments. Why is apartments always the answer? Here we have an applicant proposing to increase rental units from 0 to 247 at this location. Your response?
I think that would have to be something that the developer would have to speak to, what their initiative is, the landowner and then the developer as to what the reasoning would be to that. I don't think I could fully address what that would be.
Well, I appreciate that response, but I've been here 12 years, and apartments, I'm like the lady that spoke earlier. I'm up here too. And can you answer the question, why is apartments always the answer for a developer? Is there any sensible answer?
I could address it. It's not necessarily limited to this specific development. A lot of times, to maximize the land value of high dollar property, sometimes the equivalents is to get enough density on that. Sometimes it could be commercial density if that's a possibility. Other times could be residential density. And the more the density, then the more productive use as far as from an income standpoint, or how much you're giving for the property and what the cash flow would be at the bottom line. And that's why a lot of times a multifamily development, not just here, but just about anywhere, as far as from a financial standpoint for the investors and developers, can be a very good investment because of the demand, and then especially depending on the level of density that you can achieve. And that's why oftentimes, not limited to this, but oftentimes we have developers or folks that are investors that are interested in a lot of different areas, even beside this one.
Are you saying that apartments is in demand in this city?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Demand?
Yeah. Yeah, high demand. Every housing sector that you can imagine is through the roof. Especially, we know it, we live here. This is a great place to live. And so living here, whether you're a homeowner or whether you could rent something, and really it would be for any type of product that you can imagine, from $1 million lakefront property to a studio apartment that might be some of the type of product that they have. There's an undetermined amount of folks that are interested.
Okay, let me move on.
Okay.
In reading my notes here, in addition to the 247 new apartments, the applicant is also asking for several waivers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If my memory serves me correctly, building in this area can only be 3 stories. However, this applicant wants to build 2 apartments with 4 stories.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain the difference why?
What that is with the Planning Commission approving the designation of a phasing of, I think it was called Phase 9, a new Phase 9, that then put it where a 4-story building would be okay. There's not a need for that waiver with the designation. Yeah, truly, before this request, I think the maximum height, I think it was 3 stories.
Yeah.
But from it coming from the Planning Commission, that's been changed to where 4 stories is acceptable within this plan development. And it's a phasing, and it's equivalence to, it could be the equivalence to a waiver, but it's already kind of been determined that 4 stories would be okay with the determination of the phasing. Ultimately, BOMA has the final decision, on all of these things, whether it's a waiver or if there were no waivers.
So it could be 5 stories instead of 4?
No, it's 4 stories is the limit.
Why 4?
Some of the other areas within Indian Lake Village, I don't know what those specific sections are, do allow for 4-story. And then that was within this greater plan development, there were allowances for 4 and 6 stories, and some areas only allowed 3 stories. But that's kind of what they changed, is changing the height of that.
Okay. Okay, the standard of 65% brick on all sides is 65%, right?
That's correct.
All right, I see here that the applicant wants 25% brick on the front and 10% brick on the back. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the latest understanding I have of that. Yes, correct.
Can you
Yes, sir.
explain to me and these people why he's getting this when that's not the standard?
Right. The standard is 65% brick, and typically what that high standard for brick is brick has a tendency to get a more high value type of building. In a larger building, like a 4-story building or something like this, even though we say 65%, then there is the opportunity, of course, for waivers. And looking at a waiver, we shouldn't consider a waiver unless we're looking at a building that has a unique design. If it's unique, or because of the mixture of materials with that particular design, then, that would be maybe in some instances better than if it was 100% brick and had less ins and outs and less visual attractiveness, where it'd be a little bit more on the blocky side of things. So that's kind of what we look at. But we have that higher brick standard in order to encourage that level of brick, or, you need to come up with a really good architectural plan that utilizes other material to where that we can look at it and say, hey, this actually would be as good as or better than 65% or even 100%.
Okay, so excuse me, so planning just couldn't say no, 65%, period. You can't say that to the developer.
No, they could have, but they recommended that waiver with moving it forward to BOMA.
Do you know why and who? And the commissioners you're talking about?
Yeah, I think overall, it was just the design and the elevations of the building, with the scale of the building and the elevation of the building, that lower level of brick with the mixture of other materials and architectural details, that was an attractive building that they felt comfortable with the waiver. It was discussed quite a bit about the brick and the waiver and the elevation in the meeting prior to the vote.
You're doing good. Keep it up. Come on. All right, let me go to waiver number 3. That's on page 41. If anybody wants to join me. 446 parking spaces are required for this development per the parking ratio specific in the zoning ordinance. The applicant is proposing to provide 334 of those required on-site and the remaining 112 spaces off-site within the parking lot of the existing shopping center to the northeast. Did I read it right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now here's where I'm confused. If the parking space requirement for this development per parking ratio is 446, why is the applicant, why is the applicant provided 334 on-site and he's asking for 112 off-site?
Hold on just one second. Let me get a drink of water. We'll just knock it into it.
Keith, we've got some bottles back here.
I didn't mean to choke you up. Oh, okay. That's all right. You may repeat that question?
No, I can do that.
All right.
What the developer's looking at is you have that commercial area that's right there where I believe the Nest is located. I think that's the business that's there. And within that area, the ratios of parking do show that there is excess parking within that area. Not enough to meet that whole thing, and the developer can probably address what that difference is. So it's not that whole number, but it's a part of that 112 spaces that commercial area has extra parking, and the developer will have to address this. But when they're looking at it and sharing those spaces is determining that because of the different uses and the number of spaces and the diminished need for parking that's overparked within the area that's in front of Nest and on the side of Nest, that there's enough parking to do that. This is, I mean, it's something that is not, from a planning standpoint, it's good to have shared parking, but of course you need to be very careful about it. And in this particular case, we discussed this at the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission felt, based on the numbers and the location and the uses in the commercial, that would be a reasonable thing for them to share parking. What that does, it mostly puts the residential area at risk, because these are not guaranteed spots. They're just first come, first served,
No,
first some spots, but.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Yes, sir.
I'll get to
Okay.
that. We'll cross that bridge. I'm just confused, though. I'm looking at the parking, per parking ratio, 446. I can't understand why they can't, with what, 8.7 acres, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yes, sir.
Why can't they use some of that space back there? I know they want some, what was they asking for, walking lanes and stuff like this? How come planning can't say, well, use that space back there for your additional 112?
Right.
I mean, why does it have to be off-site?
It was something that was discussed quite a bit at the Planning Commission meeting, but the Planning Commission still, even after that discussion and talked about it, and the developers representative that discussed traffic and discussed the parking, explained that, then they voted to recommend approval.
Let me look to page 51.
Alderman Waters, we do have representatives of the applicant if you want to ask them questions as well.
I'm not through with Keith right now, okay? Page 51, Keith, at the end, down here, is that the 112 he's talking about, or they're talking about? Is that the right location?
Yes, it's just off-site where there's kind of the green island. Yeah, it's within that area. Yes, sir.
So we have two vacant tenants at this opposite end from Hobby Lobby, as I saw today. Two right at the very end. We know this is a growing location. This is a growing part of our town. Two vacant buildings today could be a nice restaurant or some other business tomorrow. So I suggest we think about the future in regard to using other merchants' parking facilities. And I see on page 42, let's go to 42, Keith.
Okay.
Y'all bear with me out there. But this is next to I live there. Page 42, Keith. Let's see, it's the second dot down. I don't know what number it'll be, but let me read it. While the shared parking proposal does not meet the strict letter of this requirement, because this is a planned unit development, the Planning Commission has the leeway to grant some latitude and allow the shared parking proposal.
That's correct. With this being a planned development, everything that's in the zoning ordinance with the approval, the Planning Commission and ultimately BOMA, there is great latitude as to how you look at that. Could be things like the height of a building, could be how much lot coverage is on a building, could be some things in regards to this specific comment about parking. Could be about how close it is to an adjacent property that might be zoned differently. So really, when you're going through the plan development process, there is great leeway for the Planning Commission to recommend and for BOMA to approve that you can do something different.
Okay.
And that's the whole idea about plan development, is for it to be flexible in looking at that. And then as we're looking at those things, as we look at plan developments, and we have in the past and will continue in the future, is always looking that, are from a city advocate standpoint of looking out, are we getting the better end of the deal? So whatever the negotiated deal is on all of these different things, are we getting the better side of this? And that's kind of how the plan development process works.
Has planning received any kind of a signed agreement between the developers and the owner, not the tenants, but the owner of that property?
Yeah, I don't, Not on this one. I don't think we've received, have we seen a copy of that? Okay, we have the letter of intent, but not the, whatever the specific agreement is. I don't think we have that, but, of course, we have the letter of intent that covers that, hey, I'm the property owner and I'm supportive and okay with this application.
Keith, I think, help me out, I think, Alderman Waters, are you asking if they have a written agreement with the shopping center next door?
With not the tenants, but the owner of the lot, of the property.
Okay.
And I know who owns the property, but.
Yeah, Tennessee, is it Tennessee Holdings?
10 Holdings has it?
Yeah, Tennessee Holdings is the owner, current owner.
No, we're not the owner of the shopping center.
No,
Of the
they're not.
property, of that property.
Of the property that this
Yeah.
development.
Of the 8.7 acres, they
I'm
own
not
it.
talking about that. I'm talking about the shopping center.
Yes.
Do they have,
Agreement, a written letter of intent.
Hold on. Rob, can you come up here and explain who you are and what your role is?
did you understand my question?
Yes, and I think he might be able to address
Yeah.
that with the.
Tell us who you
Rob
are.
Horton with 10 Holdings, and one of the owners of the 8.75 acres. We do not own the shopping center that Hobby Lobby is in, but we do have a written letter of intent to share parking and enter into a financial arrangement with them where we will share cost on that
Are they
parking.
charging you to do that?
Yes,
They are?
yes.
Why don't we have that here before us tonight?
Why don't what?
Why didn't we have this here tonight before us to look at?
You guys, we have provided it. If it didn't end up in your packet,
No,
I don't
it's not in my
control
packet.
that, but
Okay.
we did provide it.
Alderman Waters, I do believe that they had it in the packet and they talked about it at the planning commission. Am I right about that?
Everything
Yeah.
in the planning commission should be in the packet.
Okay. We can get that if we need to take a break, when you want to see that, that's fine, but I think we can also trust the planning staff that they have it.
Okay, let me move on. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Rob.
Let me close out here by talking about this runabout. Now, Keith, do you want to talk about it? Let them. The runabout at Saundersville Road and Commercial Access. That's the road that comes out
Yes, sir.
from their location. Do they have a traffic study already?
That might be something for the Public Works Director to address. Yeah, that might be something, Sarah might be better positioned to address that at. Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, lady.
Hello,
How you?
I'm well. How are you?
Does Public Works have a traffic study?
They do. We do. Yes,
Okay.
we do.
Does it justify a runabout?
It is. Yes. When they did we had them do a comparison between the change in use and the permitted use of the commercial, and they showed a significant decrease in the trips by changing to the proposed use. And another part of what we asked them to look at was improvement to that intersection that's noted, Saundersville and that access road. Previously, we've had discussions at Traffic and Parking Committee that it's a high crash location, or it has been perceived to be that way. And we've had discussions that it's very confusing because of how wide it is, and that there are a lot of conflict points there, which cause an issue. And so we asked them to review that and to make recommendations to improve that situation, to reduce congestion, to improve safety, and that the roundabout was the recommendation. And
Okay, leave that up there if you don't mind. I said it twice daily, about an hour today, and see that come out on Saundersville Road there, right in the middle, from twice daily? Come on down. Hey, I'll go back, right there. There's a sign that says no exit.
yes,
It's a sign. Do you believe that cars come out of there all the time
they do.
and back up that traffic all the way down to Papa Pizza, or what you call it?
Yes, they do.
That's dangerous. That's a lot of traffic. I'm saying that because I live right down the street there, okay?
Yeah.
And I go that way every day. But why can't we either close that right here or make some other adjustment?
I would be in favor of another adjustment. Unfortunately, we would not be able to close it. When we were going through the design review process for Twice Daily, they needed that access point for their deliveries and I believe also for fire. And that's actually why it is the way it is.
Thank you. I'll close by saying that light right here at Indian Lake, all the way, it can back up traffic all the way back to past that intersection.
Yes.
It's easy to do that because there's a lot of traffic. But I've took up more time than I need, so, Mayor, do I need to suspend the rules? Does the developers have any questions for me or anything? I'll be glad to talk to you, but.
Why don't we go to Alderman Edwards, and then we can come back to any other questions if we need them.
No, I'm good. You don't have to come back to me. I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Waters. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Rob. Alderman Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Sarah or Stan or Rob, what is the current projected cost of the construction of this roundabout?
Good evening. Patrick Poole with Al Nyer, and I am the national market leader. We also have Josh Rowland, who's with Kimley Horn, can also speak on several of the technical questions that may be addressed on our proposed project that we're very excited to be presenting here today. As far as the roundabout itself, our initial estimates are ranging right now between $500,000 and $600,000 for not only the roundabout improvements that we've worked with the planning staff on, but also some of the drive turn lane improvements that we can illustrate as well on our slide if need be, Mayor.
Well, I mean, I think a roundabout is a good idea. Sarah mentioned that this is a high accident area, and I make the mistake, I think, at least once a week of driving through that intersection and almost getting a wreck every time. So regardless of how this turns out, I think we need to look into doing a roundabout there. I don't know if we have the funds we need to borrow, but we need to really push for this. So, but I appreciate you willing to offer this, and we'll see how this turns out. And if it doesn't turn out where y'all are going to be building it, I really hope the city can look into this in the future. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Patrick, thank you. Alderman Edwards, thank you. Alderman Kimball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe you might be able to answer this. You mind if I call you Patrick?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Down there at Saundersville Road, aren't you also going to be increasing 2 left turn lanes right there? Adding an additional turn lane onto Indian Lake?
That's correct. And real quick, is that part of our slide? It may be beneficial if there's going to be multiple questions on the traffic improvement to go ahead and illustrate that. And Josh, feel free to.
But I would agree that a roundabout there would help because I have been sitting at Sam's, turning left onto the road there, and people that have the right-of-way will stop, like they have a stop sign, and it's like, I do not have a stop sign. Would you please just do proper driving techniques, and we will thin this intersection out. The problem is some people want to be nice, and some people don't understand. It's only 2 stop signs. There's not a 4-way. It is a 2-way stop.
Jason, thanks for
And
putting that
it
up.
causes an issue, and therefore a roundabout would be a wonderful treatment there, or even a 4-way stop, but it would back up traffic through the red light, I'm sorry to say, on Indian Lake if we were to do that. So anyways, that's all I have right this moment. Thank you.
Patrick, hold on. We might have another question for you. Alderman Cunningham. Thank you, Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Patrick, what kind of, have you done any kind of study on what kind of property tax revenue that this project would generate after completion?
We have. So that has been part of our ongoing underwriting and cost analysis of the site. And Mayor, I do have a slide on that as well. I don't know who's controlling.
The guy behind you in the red shirt named Jason.
Oh,
helping
there
us
we
out.
go.
Oh, can they control it there? Thank you. Y'all are good.
So this facility, obviously, we're extremely excited about this project and really being able to offer something that the city of Hendersonville does not currently have, and that's to target the highest end market in the luxury stack flats market. Based on our initial analysis, as you can see here, we compiled the top 14 taxpayers in the entire city of Hendersonville. And based on the 2021 estimated tax assessment and estimated tax payment, we anticipate being the highest taxpayer in the entire city of Hendersonville. This project is estimated to generate over $428,000 in property tax, which will generate a total of $123,000 in city tax alone. And obviously, that's an annual tax going on indefinitely, and that will rise, of course, with the cost increases of the property.
Let me ask you for a clarification. You said the highest tax producer in the city. You just mean property tax. You don't
Property
mean sales
tax only, that's
Thank you.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, my second question, have you done any studies on the impact on local merchants and sales tax revenue for the city, and how that would, how that would help the area, restaurants, merchants, retail?
We don't have formal data on what the economic impact will be to neighboring properties, but I will interject just the benefit of this project to begin with is being able to offer an urban-like feel in a suburban market like Indian Lake Village in the city of Hendersonville. So the target market of this is really geared toward young professionals and empty nesters, both of which are in a high-income bracket. We at Al Nair are extremely excited about the project's ability to walk to local shops and restaurants. It's fully sidewalk streets and bike path. Based on the data we have received from the city of Hendersonville's current multifamily target market, especially those in the higher end products such as the Lux here in Indian Lake Village, the average annual income will surpass over $100,000 per unit. And a lot of those residents have a lot of exposable income. They tend to shop more. They tend to eat out at more restaurants more. The entire Indian Lake Village will benefit from this development and the residents it will bring, including the local shops and restaurants.
What is the average rent? And it's going to be 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units?
These are currently only 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. Certain 1 bedrooms will offer an additional office, again, catering toward that young professional that's looking to work from home and enjoy and have room to work, as well as have some guests from time to time. The average rents will range from $1,500 to $2,000 per month. That alone will equate to a relatively high single-family home value. Again, our target market is those young professionals and empty nesters with the higher income brackets who ideally are looking at purchasing a property in the $400,000 and up range, but instead would opt to live at a high amenity complex like this in a walkable environment such as Indian Lake Village that have access to resort-style pools, on-site fitness centers, on-site co-working spaces, dog parks, as well as the beautiful greenway that we have here in Indian Lake Village.
Okay, parking. I know we talked about parking. Did you include, I know your plan calls for some garages. Have you accounted for that as parking spots as well in the garages?
We have. We believe the garage spaces will actually lease up rather quickly, given their proximity to each of the units. The site plan, have you switch over to the site plan if you can. The site plan will allow for a number of tucked under garages as well as detached private garages. I believe a total of 98 total garage spaces. Those will be offered at a premium rate, which again we believe will lease up at the most rapid pace, with the remaining being all surface, uncovered surface lots.
Let's talk about the roundabout. The construction of the roundabout, will that be constructed at the same time the residents, the buildings will be constructed? And tell me about the timing on that.
So that is still up for final permitting, but that would be from the developer standpoint, as well as we handle all of our own construction as well. And I should mention Al Nair recently completed our Vanderbilt Health Facility here in Indian Lake Village. Any of our normal off-site improvements like that, we prefer to handle throughout the build process so that they will be completed simultaneously with our construction of the project. We do that because we already have teams on site, we have construction equipment on site, and by the time we receive our final use and occupancy of our project, we like for all the off-site improvements to be completed as well, so it's a turnkey project ready for residents.
So by time you're ready to rent the first, the first build, say you do two, I don't know if you're going to do it in phases or.
It would be all one phase, and it would all happen simultaneously. If the city prefers us handling the off-site improvements, which again, we are comfortable with. We've done that in the city of Murfreesboro, the city of Lebanon, and I believe here in the city of Hendersonville as well. That would all be completed simultaneously with the overall project.
So that roundabout will be ready for use when you're ready to rent your first unit?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that was my other question. And then, Keith, I have some questions, one or two questions for you, please. Thank you, Patrick. Let's talk about the traffic. I know that we spoke about commercial traffic versus residential traffic, and I understand that commercial traffic may generate more traffic than just a commercial, than a residential area. Is that right?
And I can talk about it generally, but our Public Works Director may be able to speak to it more, or the developer's traffic engineer. But yes, typically, commercial development of the type that could possibly go there would exceed the developers' transportation professionals have stated that's the case, and that is reasonable, that the traffic for commercial development fully built out within that area would surpass even residential density at this level. And it's definitely, there's definitely different times of the day that it's impacted. Commercial traffic could be totally different than a residential traffic. But
Okay, and then we talked about that facility being 4 stories.
yes,
Do we have any other facilities in the Indian Lake Village plan that are 4 stories?
yes.
Isn't the gatherings 4
Gatherings-
stories?
Maybe,
Or 5, maybe?
I know it's 4, but I think it may be 4.
And the hotels in the
The
area?
hotels in the area. The Lux is 3, so that's 3. But there are some other 4-story buildings, and I think in some areas it actually is allowed for 6 stories
Okay,
along Saundersville Road,
all right.
potentially.
Okay, well, those are the end of my questions. I may want to make some comments at the end, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Yeah, Director Free, I've got a question. I don't know if I need to direct that to you or the developers. Why did they choose apartments instead of condos?
Yeah, the developer would need to address that specific question.
Okay.
So to give you a little bit of history on this, so we also owned the property that the Gatherings was built on that you guys were just talking about, which is a 4-story, over 55 restricted stacked flat development. The builder that built that, which was Beazer Homes, at the time they put that small piece under contract with us and got approval to build, they put this property that we're talking about tonight also under contract, with the intent of that being a larger Phase 2, dependent upon how well the sales of their smaller Phase 1 goes at the current location. That has not gone as well as they would have hoped, as the sales pace has not been as fast as they would have hoped for it to be. It's been over a year that they let that contract lapse and chose not to move forward. So we've been marketing that property for sale for almost 7 years now. Retail is not going to happen there. There's no visibility there. Not a whole lot of need for retail expansion in this market, and that's what it's currently approved for. We've had 0 offers from any retail developers on that property. We have had interest in some of our other property in Indian Lake Village from developers of hotels. That interest has been more on Saundersville Road down toward Stop 30, I think because of visibility from Vietnam veterans. We've tried to redirect them to this piece because we believe this piece is more in the center of the action in Indian Lake Village, and thought it would be a better place for hotels. But we've had two different developers look at it, both say no. And then, of course, COVID hit, and they never even moved forward with the original pieces of property they were looking at. So we tried several of those different uses. The one that got the furthest was the stack flat for sale product. But as I said, the market was not deep enough for them to continue with phase two.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Alderman Robertson.
I have a couple questions for Director Free. I don't have any questions for the petitioner because I met with them an hour and a half, and they answered all my questions. So I'm ready to give my opinion when that time is ready. But two questions.
Yes, sir.
And I'm looking at the data request that I sent to Tim. So I'm quoting off of his responses, and I think you saw his responses.
I don't have that in front of me, but yes, I did see those.
Okay. I asked the question, what percentage of brick construction is the applicant requesting in its waiver? And he gave me 12.5% and 16.3% on the front.
Alderman Robertson, is this a response from Timothy Whitten?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Timothy Whitten from the
Yes.
planning staff.
Thank you, okay.
That's correct.
And he said, on the front, the two fronts of the buildings, it's 12.5 and 16.3, and on the other three sides would be 14%. So tonight, we heard some different numbers. We heard 25% on the front, and that's not the numbers that staff gave me. So has the applicant changed the percentages of brick?
I'm not sure who said 25%.
I thought in response to Mr. Waters.
No, I think Mr. Waters was asking about that, and we talked about why grant waivers, but I think Mr. Waters had stated pretty close to those percentages. I don't think there was a 25% brick percentage that anybody talked about tonight. I could have missed it.
Well, look in the staff report in our on page 43. And I'm just trying to get a firm grip on what the percentages we're looking at. The fronts of the two buildings have 25% brick, while the sides have 10% brick. You see that on page 43?
Very top of 43.
Top of 43?
Yes.
So I'm getting two different numbers.
I think that got clarified. I believe that was maybe one of the staff comments, is to provide further clarification. This was based on the information that the staff had prior to the Planning Commission, but I think the discussion about this specific numbers, I believe, was at the Planning Commission. And then I think the numbers that you had were the closer look at it.
So what are the numbers? What are the correct numbers?
Yeah, I think from the meeting we had with the applicant, the numbers you just listed
Yes.
were what the applicant were stating were the updated, clear numbers.
So
of
in
what that
fact,
was.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's 12.5% on the front and 16.3%.
16.3 on the rear.
Yes. So that is what the numbers you listed.
Yes.
Are the correct numbers.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I want to just.
And that was one of the, I think that was one of the concerns with staff on the submission, is to get that clarified, and eventually.
So actually, we're not looking at 25% that's in our packet, but it's the 12.5 and 16% for the front.
Yes.
Okay. The next
Yes,
question.
that's correct, yes.
The next question that I asked staff, and I have a response, as a result of the shared parking, will by de facto, the Indian Lake Village West Shopping Center fall outside of the ordinances for parking spots for those businesses? And Mr. Whitten said yes, they would.
That's correct.
So not only would the petitioner not be able to meet the parking spaces on its footprint, but by going over into the commercial, now they won't be able to fit the ordinances for parking in our regulations.
That's correct.
Okay.
Without a waiver within that plan development process that allows for waivers.
Okay,
of
that's
many things, yes.
That's all the
correct.
clarifications that I have.
Alderman Robertson,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
We have nobody else in the queue. We have a couple options. We can, I can ask for more discussion. We could take a break, or I can go to Alderman Pat Campbell, who just hit his button.
Slow down a little bit. I think we need to talk about hardy board for a moment. Would one of the developers like to step up or someone who'd like to answer some questions about building materials, comparing brick to hardy board and exactly what is hardy board, so we'll have a better understanding? Since that is a newer building product that's on the market, it's not exactly wood. And I'd like someone to explain what hardy board is, because they're using hardy board in a lot of different developments nowadays. And this one right here, as I'm looking at the pictures, it's being utilized quite a bit in this. How much hardy board is being used in this building right here?
It's hardy board, and I'm
Hold on one
Josh
second.
Rowland.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you guys start us off.
Sorry.
Tell us.
My name's Josh Rowland. I'm
Yes,
with
sir.
Kimley Horn, the engineer and land planner for the applicant. We've been in lockstep with 10 Holdings and with Al Nair on developing the site plans and the architecture for the project. What you see before you tonight is a luxury and Class A project, and it's built with durable materials. Hardy board has evolved significantly over the last couple of decades from being a kind of a common single-family siding to a very high-tech and durable product that has pigment in the product. So the colors that you see aren't always paint, they're actually pigment inside the product. We have different textures that look like natural wood, but they're actually cement board. So it's a cementitious product. It's cement. It's as durable as that thin set brick that you see used in larger applications like this. These types of projects require durability and the ability to look good over time. If I might, because there were some questions about percentages, I wanted to just expand a little bit on the various aspects of commercial architectural design in your ordinance and how we approach those, because that's
Hold on
really.
just a second, Josh.
Yeah.
Alderman Campbell, do you want to go ahead? Do you want him to?
Yes, sir. I would like to hear his answer.
There we go. Go ahead, Josh. Thanks.
I think it might just help shed a little bit of light. There's 3 categories that your ordinance identifies that are important for commercial building design. It's windows, so glazing, it's articulation, how the building steps in and out, and then the materials. What you see tonight goes, 3 or 4 times the requirements on the windows and articulation. Just as some examples, glazing is a requirement on the first floor of 60% across the board. We have 70 to 90% on our ground floors. We have closer to 90% on these front elevations where we have these large 2-story volumes of big storefront glass. When you look down the sides of the building, we have 60+% glass, big window packages, big door packages for the units. That extends to all floors of the unit. Your requirements require up to 30% on the second and upper floors. We're still in that 70+% range for glazing. So that's really why we have a lower masonry percentage, because we have more glass, and that's more expensive and higher quality than masonry. Articulation is the other one. Commercial buildings require a minimum of 40-foot spacing between movement in the building facade, so you don't have a long flat plane on a building. Every 12 feet along this elevation, we have movement in the building. We have recessed porches, we have articulated windows, and you can see that throughout the architectural design. I mean, this is a really attractive building. It really embraces that greenway and the park and that kind of that natural environment that we're right up against here along Drake's Creek. If we were to follow the minimum requirements of this articulation and glazing and meet the masonry, you'd have a flatter building with a lot of brick. We felt like this was a better approach. It lives better for the units. You have bigger windows, bigger doors. You have this this more interesting building, quite frankly, and that's why we chose to do more on the articulation in the windows and reduce the masonry. We have it where it counts. It's down on the street level. It's at the doors. It's at the key focal points. But to your point, just because it's cementitious siding doesn't make it any less durable or high quality than if it were a brick material.
Yes, sir, that's why I want to get at the quality of the building materials being utilized in this building, because I know that they have changed over the years, and that's what I wanted to verify and make sure we're all on the same page on this. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for that opportunity.
Alderman Campbell, thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just been listening and taking some notes. One of the things that I heard why is apartments always the answer, and I wrote down here apartments I don't think are always the answer. I mean, we have Forest Park, who's been approved for these gentlemen here to build, and I think is in that process now, which is single-family dwellings. I also have Durham Farms that I wrote down as a note, and I wrote a side note on that not too long ago there was discussion about single-family dwellings being built in Durham Farms that were going to be pure rental units, and I don't think that has changed any. I think there's going to be, from what I understand, quite a few. Is that not correct, Keith? In the 100-plus range of single-family homes built to be rental units. So whether you have a rental unit in a 3-bedroom home at Durham Farms or you have a 1 or 2-bedroom apartment, it's still a rental unit. So that comparison is a true comparison. Rents is rents, and any way you look at it. I also heard the schools are going to be impacted. I think at 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, you're going to find not a large impact on schools. I don't believe there'll be a lot, 3 or 4 folks living in 1 bedroom and mom and dad going to work. So I honestly believe that schools won't be impacted. Roundabout lane solves a major issue in our city for its traffic. That has been noted by the police department, our public works department, that is a high crash area. I think it's been noted by three people on this board tonight, Alderman Edwards, I know, and Alderman Hayes, about going through there, and I can honestly say the times I've been there, it's not been, I've kind of scooted across and cut it a little bit too close on occasion. So benefit, I wrote that down, I heard that said. I think availability for younger folks that are young professionals especially, that are just wanting to rent, come home, go out to eat, come back home, not cut grass, go to the pool in the summertime. I think it's an ideal spot for that. I said in general committee, and I'll say it again, I think you have come to the point that you have found Cinderella's slipper. Now, the parking issue might make her slipper a half size too large, but I think you found Cinderella's slipper. You have 247 units that are going to be behind Hobby Lobby that are not going to be overly visible, and that seems to be a concern. The city's not going to have streets to take care of. That's, that unit takes care of its own streets. There's no trash service that'll need to be there. We will have to provide police, fire, and EMS, and I heard that mentioned a while ago, but I believe police, fire, and EMS can handle that, as tight as that is. So I really do believe that if we're ever going to approve any multi-family units, you found the spot to do it. And I think those units will be used. They'll be used by the right kind of people. The quality of unit that I know these folks will build will be about like everything else they've done in this community. And I will have to say they live here. So It's not that they're coming from another state or they're coming someplace else and promising something they can't keep. They have to live with it. They have to live with us looking at them every day. And so they have to do things the way it should be done. And I think you have up to this point. You've got a lot of money and a lot of time invested up and down Saundersville Road. You're investing time and money here. You're investing somewhere in the $600,000 to $700,000 range in a roundabout and a turn lane, and trying to help that traffic situation, and just feel like you got a pretty good product. I guess that tells everybody that I'm going to vote for it. So I probably am. And with that, I'd like to call a question.
We have a motion to call the question. We do have one other person in the queue. Do we have a second? We have a second from Alderman Cunningham. All those in favor of calling the question, this requires 9 votes. Please signify by hitting your green button when we're ready, which we're not quite ready. That sort of surprised us all. So green button will cut off debate. Green button will cut off debate, and red button will allow allow the discussion to continue. Not yet. Okay, there we go. So green button will cut off debate, and red button will allow the discussion to continue.
Can I back up?
Sure.
If there's somebody in the queue, I'd like to go ahead.
So we're going to withdraw that motion. Thank you, Jason. And we're going to go to Alderman Robertson. Jason, go ahead and be prepared for electronic vote on the main question. So we need to clear this out. Just a second here. I'll tell you, it would be helpful if anybody else who wishes to speak on this before the vote, if they go ahead and press their button to speak, and we'll get you in the queue. So Alderman Robertson, and then I have Alderman Hayes.
I want to thank the petitioner. We had a good meeting the other day, last Thursday, here at City Hall with planning staff, and so I wanted to disclose that. But I want to thank the petitioner for their professionalism and for their ethics in their presentation. This is policy, not personalities. This is planning, not politics. And in that vein, I wish to make these comments. I feel a real responsibility to provide why I vote on consequential matters before us. This instant resolution fits that category. I believe the public interest and fairness is served by allowing both the public and the petitioner to know the rationale of my vote. In fact, I have promised the petitioner that I will explain my vote tonight, one way or the other, and the following fulfills my promise. To me, the threshold issue is whether we should significantly alter the original design of Indian Lake Village to changing 8.74 acres of land zoned for commercial development to residential zoning for 247 high-end apartment units. The secondary issues are the zoning ordinance waivers the petitioner is seeking. I will address first the latter issues. Let me preface by disclosing that this request is in Ward 6. And just by the way, thanks to the staff for all, I've asked them a lot of questions and they've been very helpful. By the way, there are 5,600 apartments in the city of Hendersonville. As a comparison, if this is granted, Ward 6 will have 1,176 apartments. By the way, Ward 4 has the fewest number of apartments. That's 220 apartments in Ward 4. The original final development plan for Indian Lake Village designated 1,200 residential units, of which 600 were for rental and 600 owner-occupied. The rental gap, as we have heard, the rental cap has been met. The petitioner seeks to expand the allowable rentals from 600 to 847. This would mean that rental units would exceed owner-occupied units and also reduce the available land for commercial purposes in this development. Now, the petitioner is requesting a density of 28.4 units per acre, which is greater than any other rental or owner-occupied development in Indian Lake Village, by far. By definition, high density, according to the staff, is considered 8 to 15 units per acre. So this request is for uber high density. For example, the adjacent Aventura apartments have a density of 17.4 units per acre. And while the recently approved Anderson Park, an owner-occupied development in the area, which I voted for, has a density of 8.78 units per acre. So this request is for the highest density of any development in Indian Lake Village. Because of the high density, the proposed development cannot meet the parking zone requirements for 247 units on its footprint. Creatively, the petitioner sought out parking spaces in the adjacent shopping center. This parking plan would have residential and commercial parking spaces shared on a first-come, first-served basis. For example, if all of the shared parking spaces are full with residential customers, customers of the businesses affected people would not be able to stop and shop at their businesses. If granted, this would be the first time such an arrangement would be allowed by this city. Consequently, such action would also by default, as we heard, cause the shopping center businesses to be in violation of our zoning parking requirements. I question whether setting this precedent would be in the best interest of the city. If this variance is approved, mark my word, you can bet that more similar requests will come. Next is the building material waiver request. Our zoning ordinance requires a minimum of 65% brick for exterior walls in a development of this size. The petitioner is requesting permission to use 12.5% and 16.3% on the fronts of the two buildings and 14% on the remaining three sides. These percentages would be the lowest by far of any residential development in Indian Lake Village. And while we have allowed some minor variations in the 65% rule, never has this city allowed such drastic variation in the final development plan. Again, I contend a dangerous precedent would be set. Nevertheless, the threshold consideration this request puts before me is whether there are sufficient compelling reasons to drastically change the original plan for Indian Lake Village. Indian Lake Village has proven an overwhelming success to the city of Hendersonville. I don't know how past city leaders and planners came up with the proportions or the percentages between commercial and residential and rental and owner occupied, but it is evident to me that their past vision and efforts and our faithful adherence to the original plan has been successful. Indian Lake Village is a perfect example of a properly managed growth. It achieves a delicate balance needed to be successful. So as we near the end of available land for development in this city, it is my belief great care has to be taken to preserve existing vacant land zoned for commercial purposes. In conclusion, I made my decision after careful analysis of all the information provided by both staff and the petitioner, along with several visits to the land in question. I have listened to the deliberations of the Planning Commission on YouTube, and I have given great deference to the opinions of citizens who have contacted me and who I represent. Finally, and not lightly, have I considered the multiple ordinance waivers requested by the petitioner and how it could put us in a box in future requests for apartments. Considering all the facts and calling upon my best judgment, it is my humble and considered opinion that the petitioner's request to amend the FDP, the Final Development Plan, to add 247 multiple-family dwellings to the list of permitted uses is not in the public interest, and I cannot support it. Thank you.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Hayes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to share a couple of emails that I received from citizens. They were both in support of this building project, and I understand it's a $50 million project. Those are the numbers I've heard, probably one of the biggest ever in Hendersonville. But this is from Lois Burnett. She says, "Hey there, Jonathan. I'm just following up on our phone conversation from Saturday regarding the high-end apartment complex proposed next to Hobby Lobby. Again, I would like to reiterate my support of this project. As a Hendersonville business owner of the 4th largest salon and medical spa in the United States and working toward opening another day spa in Hendersonville very soon, as a longtime resident, this apartment complex is the exact controlled apartment complex I'd like to see us have. This will draw more executive and professional renters to our area. These are folks that will spend money on businesses such as mine. Aside from the business aspect, this will also provide a secure place to live for single women due to interior residential entrances, as well as the other security features. I have seen a huge increase in rental homes throughout Hendersonville, and this creates a unique challenge for homeowners, both with resale value as well as constant turnover of tenants. I also want to stress how appealing the use of multiple materials on the exterior of this building is to me. We need a variety of finishes to create visual interest from an architectural standpoint. While building a home, I lived in the Lux Apartments, and this is somewhat reminiscent of this project, but on a grander scale. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at the Lux. Before that, on October 8th, I received this email, and Alderman Collins also received it. And I asked, and she said it's fine to use her name. It's from Jessie Witherton. She says, "Hello, Mr. and Mr. Collins and Ms. Collins and Mr. Hayes. My name is Jessie Witherton. I am currently a student in Hendersonville on my final rotation for physical therapy school. The organization that I am with is planning on hiring me upon graduation and licensing me, which has led me to start looking for apartments. Since starting my search, I have not found many options in Hendersonville and have been forced to start looking in Gallatin or Goodlettsville. I would love to try and stay in the Hendersonville area due to its proximity to not only the clinic I will be working out of, but also fitness centers, restaurants, and shopping. If the project goes through near Hobby Lobby, I would want to apply to live there because I will be able to walk, bike to work, etc. These apartments would increase the likelihood of being able to stay in the community I have come to love over the past few months. So I'm asking you to vote in favor of this project." So on a personal note, Tammy and I moved here 40 years ago, and we were in search of an apartment. We were right out of college. We had no money. We were able to find an apartment, and it was the Bluegrass Village Apartments. And there were very few around, but we were able to get in one, and we stayed in there for a couple of years. 40 years later, we've raised our children here. We've been able to save our money and move to a house. I guess the points I want to make is, first, this is a great city. Of course, people are moving here, and they're going to continue to move here. And just saying no is not a strategy. And I appreciate the Planning Department and the Planning Commission for all of their work on this. I listened over and over to the last meeting with this development. There's no doubt that the people, if you don't give them an option to rent, they're going to find an option. And in this case, you know they're talking about neighborhoods, building neighborhoods full of rental homes. And so my 3 sons, now I want them all to move here. Already, they're going to move here. The first son to move here has moved here with his wife and 2 of my grandchildren, and you can bet I want the others to move here as well. He bought a house in Fountain Brook. It's right next to what's going to be a rental house, and that's okay. But the truth is, my other two sons, they also want to move here. Some want to rent, some prefer to be on the lake. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, just from the heart, I just think we have to be really careful when we look at trying to judge how our culture is going. It's up to us to decide our culture. And I understand we have people that are moving here that maybe are not from around here, and that's okay. I moved from another state. I wasn't from around here. And Hendersonville embraced me and embraced my family, and now I'm wanting to serve. And so I want us to all, it just seems like everybody's so angry these days, and it makes me sad because I'm in the traffic too. I know about the traffic, and I know how some people want to cut you off and they don't want to let you in. Well, that's your opportunity to be kind. Let them go. It's all right. And here's the thing. When we first moved here 40 years ago, if you wanted to go to a restaurant, at the minimum, you had to go all the way down Gallatin Road. There was no 386. And you spent 25, 30 minutes just to go to Rivergate. Or if you wanted to go to Nashville, you needed to go on up to I-65, go down 2 Mile Parkway. It was going to be usually 35, 45 minutes. Now, whether I'm going to the doctor or a restaurant or going to the workout facility, no matter where I'm going, I can pretty much get there in quicker than it used to be for me to drive down to Rivergate. So I'll admit I'm Mr. Positive, and I'm also, I love Hendersonville. When I ran, I did a video about, our main job up here is providing safety. That's our most important job, and I can tell you that our fire and police are ready to go. So are our emergency medical personnel. So we are positioned perfectly to do this. And the money, it's not all about the money, but anything we can do to avoid raising our property taxes, this is the type of development that will help do that. Also, if you ask the Chamber of Commerce, they will tell you that this is the type of development that brings people to the restaurants. It brings people more to retail. Certainly, more people are ordering retail online, but I guess what I want to say is people are coming no matter what. I hope they're going to be really good drivers because we do have a traffic issue. I'm going to support this, and last but not least, I want you to know I'm real excited about all my grandchildren moving here. Thank you.
Alderman Hayes, thank you. We have nobody else in the queue. So here's where we are, is a vote to hitting the green button will allow multifamily residential, which is apartments. Hitting the red button will leave the permitted uses as they are. So Jason, can you get us moving here? So again, all those in favor of Resolution 2021-47, hit the green button. That will add the multi-use, add the apartments. And those opposed, hit the red buttons, and it'll keep the uses as they are now. So let me make sure we have this correct. Alderman Robertson voting no, Alderman Waters voting no, Alderman Collins, yes, Alderman Hayes, yes, Alderman Dixon, no, Alderman Brown, yes, myself, no, Alderman Cunningham, yes, Alderman Edwards, no, Alderman Campbell, yes, Alderman Peterson, no, Alderman Skidmore, yes, Alderman Petrella, yes. Do I have that correct? That passes 7-6. Do I have a motion to take a break? We have a motion from Alderman Hayes and a second from Alderman Cunningham to take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back here. Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, we There we go. Next on our agenda is item number 3, under ordinance and resolution. This is Resolution 2021-43. This is a resolution requesting the Tennessee General Assembly to enact legislation to allow the city of Hendersonville to establish term limits for the office of mayor and alderman. So a motion from Alderman Waters, a second from Alderman Robertson. Alderman Brown.
And me as a sponsor on that, Mayor.
Without any objection, we will do that.
I'll make a debate.
Okay. Alderman Waters.
Let me put his name down.
There we go.
Hey, what happened to the crowd, man? I tell you, I guess I talked too long, didn't I? Thank you, Mayor. If my memory serves me correctly, we had 4 members who sponsored this resolution back in 2019. Tonight, we have 8.
Oh, we have 13.
13, Mr. Waters.
Huh?
Every one of us.
I haven't got that many.
Well, we cranked it up.
Go ahead, Alderman Waters.
I apologize. We got 13 tonight. Should I go on any further then? Okay, the only difference in this resolution and the 2019 is the census number. In 2010, it was 51,360. In our 2020 census, it's 61,753. That's the only difference I could find in the 2 resolutions. Now, each member of my board here, we have the copy of the 2021-43. I'm just going to read part of it, and you can read the rest of it. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Hendersonville, Tennessee, that the Tennessee General Assembly is hereby requested to amend TCA 6-3-110 to designate the current paragraph A as A1 and to add a new paragraph A2, which shall read as the following. Now, I'm not going to read the other part because we all got a copy of it and you know what it says. But that part I just read is the main part because this is really what we're here for tonight. It's the first request, and it's step number 1. And again, it's a request to General Assembly to amend the TCA 6-3-1010. If they approve it, that would allow the board an ordinance, and it would allow us to proceed with the term limits. We're not going to vote on term limits tonight. All we're voting on tonight is the request to go to General Assembly, and they give us the authority to go further. Now, I won't have to add anything else. When it comes back, step 2, that's when we start talking about term limits, okay? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. I do need to clarify something here, is that in order for the General Assembly to consider this, we have to pass this with two-thirds vote.
I'm sorry.
And for us, that is 9 votes. Any other discussion? All those in favor of Resolution 2021-43, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're on to item 4. This is second and final reading of ordinance 2021-41. This is an ordinance appropriating funds for the improvement of Big Station Camp Boulevard. I so move.
I'll second.
A second from Alderman Hayes. I need to give you all a little bit of update. I talked with Mayor Brown, it was yesterday or today. The City of Gallatin, they have discussed it. Their board has discussed it with positive comments. They have not gotten to the point where they're providing funding, and the reason they haven't done that is because the developer, Southeastern, they have a larger project inside the City of Gallatin, and Southeastern will be paying Gallatin some money. So what the City of Gallatin is likely to do is to discount what Southeastern will pay them. But as I said, they had a conversation, a positive conversation about this among their board members. The county tonight, I just got off the phone with the Budget Committee Chairman, Chris Taylor, County Commission, and they discussed it tonight. Since we had initially talked about $33,000 and now we're going to talk about a greater amount, that committee felt like they should take it back to the road committee. But again, positive conversation. Since that dollar amount has changed, they felt like they need to move it back. However, he was very clear with me that the members of the Budget Committee that just met tonight, that they all understand the need to do this work out there. Another update is that the road is getting paved. Anybody who has been near there, you understand that you've had to take a detour the past couple days. It is probably one of the most pleasant detours I can ever imagine anybody that has traveled, that they've gotten the opportunity to take that detour. I talked to David Lucky and told him that Rogers Group is not going to participate. I was skeptical that Rogers Group would participate anyway, and David asked that we still come up with that 50% of the cost of the road. He did think that the overall cost of the road was going to be lower than what he anticipated about a month ago, and what he asked was, he asked the City of Hendersonville to contribute Rogers Group's portion. I said, we're not going to do that. That would increase what we would provide in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $70,000. I told David, we're not going to do that. But what I will do is I will ask the board to move from 12.5% to 16.67%. And I'll ask the City of Gallatin to do that, and I'll ask the county to do that. What that means is that at the end of the day, the Southeastern will get reimbursed 50%, which is the deal that we offered 6 weeks ago anyway. I feel that that's fair. So I'm going to offer that amendment now, that we increase our amount to 16.67% or $44,000, whichever is the least. If, and we have a second from Alderman Collins, thank you. We will not know the total cost, and Gallatin is going to be responsible for validating that final cost, because it's going to be their road, and validating the quality of the road. I hope we don't go to $44,000. I'd like to keep it much less than that. But we made a commitment, and we offered a deal, and it seems to have worked. The road's getting repaved, and I feel like we need to honor that. Alderman Peterson. On the amendment, or should we go ahead and vote on that?
I just want to thank you for taking the initiative to fix this road. I know it's not a city road any longer, but residents use that every day, and it's been an eyesore and a disgrace.
Appreciate that.
And I thank you for stepping up to get the ball rolling so it could be fixed for the residents. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I'll admit that for a long time, I was adamant that we shouldn't touch it and we should leave it alone. And it took me a little bit of conversations and a little bit of bending before I realized that we need to be a little bit more flexible. So I appreciate acknowledging that. Alderman Cunningham, on the amendment?
No, it's on the main motion.
Okay, we'll come back to you then.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody on the amendment? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hold on, Alderman Cunningham, will you hit your button again? Thank you. Alderman Brown.
Your amendment is
So
16 point what percent?
16.67% or $44,000, whichever is least, whichever is less.
Okay, but your max is 44,000.
Max is 44,000.
Thank you.
Yep. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. So our total exposure would be up to $44,000,
Exactly.
according to your amendment.
Exactly.
Well, what if it sounds like Gallatin is moving forward with the funding that on their part, and the county, you feel confident that they'll reach an agreement to pitch in their part?
I'm basing everything on the conversation that I've had with Chris Taylor, who's the budget chairman.
Yes. And you said the road is being paved now. Who's paying for that? I mean, who
so-
contracted Rogers Group for that?
Oh, Rogers Group isn't doing the work. Southeastern has contracted another company to do the work. And it was under the understanding, the letter that I wrote them, was that we would seek to reimburse them 50%, not just the city, but all the cities and Rogers Group.
So does that increase our exposure if we already committed to Southeastern?
We could commit to Southeastern 12.5% or $35,000, the less of the two.
Okay, now we're up to 44,000 because our
Exactly.
percentages.
Exactly.
Okay, so our total exposure up to 44,000. Okay,
Right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Right. The overall cost of this road, by the way, had we done it a couple years ago, probably was in the neighborhood of 200,000. We think at this point it's probably in the neighborhood of 240, maybe 260. So if you ask me, we're getting a deal. Took me a long time to come to terms with that, but. All those in favor of ordinance 2021-41 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we're on first reading of ordinance 2021-29. This is an ordinance amending the Henderson Municipal Code, Title IX, Chapter 1, regarding peddlers and solicitors. Alderman Campbell. We have a motion from Alderman Campbell and a second from Alderman Petrelli. Alderman Campbell?
I'd just like to ask for everyone to support this right here. It's expanding our no-call initiative. It's actually taken after Gallatin. The city of Gallatin has one similar to this, and it's just to allow the residents to say, hey, I'm tired of having the cable TV company bang on my door every other Saturday, or the window guy, the roofing person, or whoever it may be, come in your house and, disturbing you. So you can register to be taken off that list, and there you go. So hopefully everyone will support this, and we can move forward. And there will be a fine if they break the rules, go outside the rules. I mean, they can have their license suspended for a year to not be able to solicit within the city of Hendersonville. It does not impact your Girl Scouts or your Boy Scouts or your child selling fruit or whatever may be the case from the school. They're protected still. So I just want to let everyone know that the children are taken care of, but this is more related to companies that come in town and go door to door, blanketing our neighborhoods all the time. So thank you.
Alderman Campbell, thank you. Alderman Robertson.
Yes, I have some questions for the sponsor or to, I guess, the police department. I want to compliment the committee for bringing this forward. I was one of the principal staff at the state level when we instituted the Do Not Call registry to try to stop telemarketers. And we did a pretty good job until the federal government got involved in it. We were doing a pretty good job. But so I have some questions on implementation, scope, reporting requirements, and enforcement.
Is this Chief Jones? Is that the best?
Yeah.
Without objection, we're going to suspend the rules here from Assistant Chief Jones.
Because I know that as soon as this hits the paper, everybody's going to be wanting to sign on. So I guess what I'm asking, what's our implementation? If constituents that ask us, when can I sign up? I didn't see any of that in the packet.
An IT question, really.
It's not, and I had communicated with Tina about putting that on the city's website where citizens can go to the website and sign up. So a little bit of development. You may speak to that as what it's going to take to get that up on the website.
Without objection, we'll hear from Tina Martin as well.
Sorry, sir.
Anybody? No, we'll go with that.
Good evening, all. I realize that this is a hot-button issue, and we are fully prepared to roll this out as quickly as possible. I understand if this gets voted on tonight, I should be able to have it operational for you within 24 hours.
Wow.
This is actually a pretty easy one.
Wow. So,
Okay, even better.
so explain for the audience and also for me, how will a customer sign up for this?
Well, I'm actually a firm believer in not recreating wheels. So just like we've already said that we're planning on modeling ours very closely to Gallatin's. Same thing, our website backend supports the same sort of form and registry database that theirs does. So setting up a form on the database, setting up the page, the verbiage is actually pretty simple. It won't take long to set up.
Wonderful. So once it's set up, would you give me an email or maybe all of us so that we
Absolutely.
can put it out on Facebook and start helping you advertise it?
Absolutely. And with this being first reading, what we can also do is we can set that up on the back end and not make it on the public side, but still give you access since that you're inside of our organization so that you can go ahead and look it over, make sure that you're happy with it, make sure that you're happy with the functionality, and then by the time it hits second reading, I just have to hit a button.
Perfect. And the scope, I think, Mr. Bradley, you explained to me that there are some solicitors that we cannot stop, political speech and maybe charitable organizations.
Yes,
And you've covered that in the ordinance, haven't you?
Well, yes, and religious speech too, of course, is protected by the First Amendment. But you look at where a permit is required is for commercial operations.
Gotcha.
So running for office is not a commercial operation typically, nor religious solicitations.
And finally, Chief, how's the enforcement? So how will people report violations and what is required?
So the same way they do now, when they report we get calls on solicitors now, but it's more of a, we don't think they have a permit to solicit in the city. So an officer responds to that area, locates the people that are doing the soliciting and verifies whether they do or don't have a permit. If they don't, they're issued a citation and told to stop. Now, sometimes we've had some vendors that got more than one citation in the same day because they didn't heed the warning to stop in the citation they got. It'll work the same way, if, you know, if they've gone onto the property of somebody who's on the do not solicit registry, because when they come up to get their permit, they'll get a link, to the database that has the names and addresses of people who are on it, which puts them on notice not to solicit at those residences. So the officer can issue that citation. Obviously, they'll have a hearing in the city court like any other city ordinance violation, and upon conviction, there is a fine and a suspension of their permit to solicit in the city of Hendersonville for up to a year in the discretion of the judge.
So, under the $50 fine section in the ordinance, is that $50 per occurrence? Or is that a
Per
flat
citation.
$50 if they hit 50 people that are on the list?
It could be bad, a real bad day for them. Now,
So-
again, the city judge has a little bit of discretion there, but as far as our officers go, every time they get that call, they're gonna issue a citation. Now, if they get a call and they hit several houses that are on the list and then
Yes.
they encounter them, they're probably gonna issue them one citation. We're not gonna sit there and write out. But if they go on after that and continue to solicit and go to another house and do the same thing, officer comes back out, they're gonna get another citation. So it's technically per occurrence.
So it's up to the officer to determine if it's per resident violation or just a violation in this subdivision?
Yeah, I mean, to be reasonable, what's gonna probably happen is maybe we get 2 or 3 calls. The officer's probably gonna go out and issue one citation. Now, in his field notes, he may be prepared to tell the judge, we got calls from 3 residents on this one particular person, but, you know, I go back to, if they issue them a citation, and later that same day, they get another call from another resident, the same person doing it again, obviously, they're not paying attention to the do not solicit list. They're probably gonna get another citation.
Yeah, and I would ask Mr. Eckenroth that when we get ready to go live after the second reading, that we have some instructions on how to report violations online too, so that people maybe can even report violations online as well as register. So as
If
much
they
as,
report it online, they're probably not gonna have an officer coming out though. You know, it's better, and we encourage people, if there's something like that going on, call the police department and have an officer come out and deal with it.
at that moment?
At that time. That's the best way to handle it.
Okay, well, I'll leave it up to y'all. I just want to make sure that the resident knows exactly what to do, follows the procedures in registration, and also how to report violations, because there are going to be violations.
There are. And we get calls now, you know, and the biggest one right now is we don't think they have a permit. So a lot of times our officers go out and they don't have a permit. But we also get calls from people, and that's kind of where this came from, of, I don't even want them coming to my house. Well, at this point, before this ordinance, we can't really tell them they can't go to, you know, which house they can and can't go to. So absent if you have a no trespassing sign in your yard or on your front door, then that's a little different. But most people are not going to hang a no trespassing sign on the front of their house.
Well, my compliments to the staff and also to the safety committee for this. This is a very good program that we can provide to our residents. So thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Appreciate that, Alderman Robertson. Any other discussion? All those in favor of first reading ordinance 2021-29, please signify, I'm sorry, Alderman Collins.
I was just wondering why the fee is capped at $50.
John, that's for you.
That's the maximum the Tennessee Constitution allows.
They didn't allow for inflation, did they?
It's been on a referendum, and the citizens of Tennessee voted to keep it at $50 maximum.
Okay,
Court costs to get you pretty bad, though.
okay.
Do you want to
That's
explain that one?
nice. I appreciate that.
It goes from 50 to about 180.
John, do you want
great.
to explain that?
Yeah, court cost is not covered by the Constitution, and it's about 3 times the amount of the fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you all. All those in favor of first reading of ordinance 2021-29, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're at first reading ordinance 2021-38. This is an ordinance establishing the position of Director of Administrative Services and consolidating information technology and human resources into one department. I so move.
Second.
A motion for myself and a second from Alderman Brown. Alderman Dixon.
I do have some questions for Mr. Eckenroth, if he could step to the podium.
Welcome back.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
So my first question, my first comment is thank you so much for trying to streamline our organizations and do the right thing for the city, because this is a great idea. And as I said in General Committee a couple weeks ago, we can always back up and punt and change again if this doesn't work. But the assistant director of human services that we're taking down to a manager, and then the information technology position from a director to a manager, one is a grade 22 and one is a grade 24. What is the difference? That they would have a 2-grade difference?
So what is currently the assistant HR director, since under this proposal there would be no HR director, the title would change to HR manager.
Right, that's what
And that pay grade is currently at a 22, so it would stay at a 22.
Okay.
The IT director, since it would be under one department, it wouldn't be the IT department, would be just renamed to an IT manager, and that pay grade would stay constant at what it is right now at a pay grade 24.
So it's all about keeping the current pay grades where they are today and just changing the titles?
Correct.
Do we feel comfortable that the level of responsibility is different at a 2-grade change, deviation?
Yeah, so the structure of how the HR department would work now, as far as that, what's currently the assistant HR director, the job responsibilities are not, they're not proposed to change. So if we go forward with the director of administrative services, the main responsibility for them would be HR. So I didn't see a lot of change in that, what's currently the assistant position right now.
Okay. Also, in our general committee discussion, I was allowed to speak. Thank you, Alderman Brown. The 2 HR positions that we have today seem to be overburdened. We talked about them being overburdened. And I mentioned an opportunity to maybe look at putting a risk management program in place to pull some of that burden off of HR. A full-time risk management law support division that would help them make business decisions every day. And I wanted to take a moment to say that I think the city, at the size that we are today, we really need to look at a better risk management program. It just makes sense to me as big as we are. I think the advantages and the functions would be to help lobby on behalf of the city with state and county officials, monitor state and federal legislations at a full-time basis, attend all committee meetings and planning commission to recognize areas of risk and provide timely counsel. I also think that they could pursue claims for damaged city property due to auto accidents, as I'm told that we don't currently take advantage of that. And again, a risk management program that would handle our workers' compensation, liability, property insurance. So I would like to ask you to consider possibly a phase 2 with your reorganization to come back and give us an idea of what you think that division would look like, because you would be the one providing the direction for it.
Sure, I think this department would create opportunities across the board for the city to strategically grow forward. And so I think there would be multiple positions that would fit well within this department.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Dixon, thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. We deferred this ordinance on September the 14th on our first meeting, simply because I knew it would take more than 30 minutes to hash some of this stuff out. We had a special called meeting, I guess this would be part of my report, on September the 28th, and spent about 2 hours in the meeting room in there. And for Alderman Dixon and some other folks came, and we did spend about 2 hours asking questions and making suggestions, and just had general discussion about several things, but most of it came back to here. And I think there's pros and cons. I think the biggest pro is streamlining some things to the fact that I think many of us feel that we need an information officer in this building handling media, Facebook, social media, which I guess is Facebook, all the things that go with that. And that person would report to this administrative director, and probably a couple other things. If you look at purchasing and some other folks that down the road we may look at putting on board, that was part of our discussion, would fall under this person. As far as, I'll save that question maybe to later, but this was recommended by the committee to come to BOMA with keeping the IT management position at a pay grade 24, the director's position at a pay grade 25, and to maybe firm up the qualifications of the director's job a little bit more, to be more heavy on HR, since it's going to be doing much more HR. So can you address that? Because I know you've had about 10 days kind of sitting and thinking.
Sure. Yeah. So everything that was proposed in the meeting is included in the proposal this evening. So let me go to it here on the page, and I'll read it specifically to you.
Okay.
So when it comes to the qualifications for the position, I did a job description, which is attached in here, and we had originally had a 5 years of experience that we had asked for in the job description, so I increased that to 7 years of experience. So the minimum qualifications, as it reads, is a bachelor's degree in human resources or related field, and at least 7 years of progressive experience with a master's degree in membership in professional organizations preferred. So if someone, maybe went and got a business degree, but has been put in a position where they were a business manager for years and then had 6 or 7 years of HR experience because they were moved into that, I didn't want to silo and say it had to be an HR degree, but that they had at least 7 years of progressive experience. So, and then, I would bring a candidate forward who was the strongest for the position. At that point, it would be, BOMA would have the option to confirm that position.
Thank you for doing that. The more qualified, the better off I feel about the hire. The other thing that was discussed, and I think this kind of pertains to this, is we've been down a position since July of 2020 in HR. There's a lot of discussion in the room that evening that HR needed help. Even HR admitted they needed help. Why that position hadn't been hired, I don't even really want to go into that. I'm not sure why I hadn't been in charge of that department. I'm not here every day is one of my statements, so I'll make that. I'm not here every day. But if we're behind and we need help and it's in the budget to have that help, then again, I feel that we need to hire that help. If we're going to authorize, and I'm not saying that's your fault. You're still in a grace period, I guess, in some ways. So, but in order to get that department the help they need, we either have to get somebody hired in one way or the other. And I think one of the things that you said, and I agree with, is that you would like to see this person on board, this administrator on board, and have them be a major part of the hiring process of those other folks in HR that need to be replaced. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think I'm good right now. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
that,
you.
Alderman Brown. We've got nobody else in the queue. All those in favor of first reading ordinance 2021-38, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. It passes unanimously. Now we are at Resolution 2021-37. This is a resolution ratifying park policies and procedures of the City of Hendersonville, Tennessee. Alderman Brown. We have a motion from Alderman Brown, a second from Alderman Petrelli. I need to make an amendment. It's this simple. Take what you have in front of you that looks just like this, that has a paper clip or a staple on it. That replaces the 32 pages. If you go to, let's see here, I said it's pretty simple, and I forgot my page numbers. If you go to page 84 and turn to pages 88, remove those 32 pages, and you'll see that they are numbered at the bottom. In fact, most of them have two numbers, a packet number as well as the policy number. So the 32 pages that are in your packet are being replaced by the 32 pages that we set at your desk. Those are changes that, oh my gosh, it started with conversations that I had with our director, Andy Gilley, and Assistant Director Dallas. They came back and made some changes. Then I made some changes, and then Andy and I made some changes. Here are those changes if you want me to go over all of them. And if we want, I still say Alderman, I'm sorry. If we want Mr. Gilley to come up and speak as well. At the end of the day, we had conversations with a committee of the Parks Board, all our staff, several youth athletic associations, several aldermen, myself, several members of the staff. What you have in front of you here, nobody agrees with 100%. But I'll tell you, most of those folks agree with probably about 98% of it. And at the end of the day, we have something that, I'll tell you, this is going to be copied by other cities. Our staff did such a good job and have really spent an awful lot of time and an awful lot of effort to do what needed to be done and to put everything in one document. At the end of the day, we're going to see other cities asking for this, and they're just going to be putting their name on it and accepting it almost 100% would be my guess. Any other discussion? Alderman Skidmore.
Sure that you did place our anyone in Public Works, because this went through our committee too.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
And I just want to make sure that the changes that were made in that committee that were in here too.
I should have mentioned that. I apologize. Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure. I would be remiss if I didn't, since I'm chairman of it.
I forgot about that committee.
All right, thank you. No problem.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2021-37, please signify by saying, I'm sorry, we need to pass the amendment first. So we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to make this amendment. Okay, second from Alderman Brown. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We have now substituted. What's in front of you is replacing what was in your packet. All those in favor of Resolution 2021-37 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're on to first reading ordinance 2021-42. This is an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2021-22 to appropriate additional funding for the inline hockey project. Alderman Robertson. We have a motion from Alderman Robertson and a second from Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Brown, you were too slow. Any discussion on this? Alderman Brown.
Well, I would hope that somebody would want to know why we want to do that. So what it boils down to is the Parks Department needs $42,000 to paint the inline hockey facility. It is now primered, but it is not painted to keep it from rusting and deteriorating over the years. It was not in the package to begin with. The reason it's on here tonight is it's expedient that we get that done. Trying to find 100 gallons of paint that is in proportion to what we need is almost impossible at this time. So I would urge everyone to support this. Thank you.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was wondering, why was this paint left off the original estimate?
Who wants that one? You want to do it? Chairman Cunningham.
Oh, Well, based on the information that was shared with our COO, it was not part of the bid process. So they did not, our provider did not put that as part of the bid process. And we need that to happen. It'll be a lot less expensive to do it now prior to construction than after construction, when he's going to have to make his zig and zag and et cetera after everything is erected. So does that answer your question, Alderman Peterson?
Not really. I do estimates for the state, and when we are accepting bids, they are complete. And if there's something left out, either the engineer or the contractor eat it. I am not in favor of voting, and I will not be voting for this tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Peterson, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 2021-42, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. We have a no from Alderman Waters and Alderman Peterson. Anyone else? And Alderman Skidmore? Let me make sure. Alderman Skidmore, Alderman Peterson voted no. Alderman Waters voted no. That passes with majority vote. Next, we're on to the appointment of Kristen Butler to the Arts Council. I need a motion. A motion from Alderman Dixon. And a second. Who was it? From Alderman Peterson. All those in favor of appointing Kristen Butler to the Arts Council, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're on to brief committee reports. Chairman Brown, General Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We approved our minutes from September the 14th and our special call meeting from September the 29th. We also passed ordinance 2021-39, an ordinance concerning retail stores for the sale of alcoholic beverages in the city of Hendersonville. That will be before you in 2 weeks. We also passed the ordinance that we just passed. That is my report.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Alderman Peterson, Planning Commission. There you go.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have the luxury of having the planning director at my disposal, and he is able to give a report much accurate than I can. Thank you.
Okay.
Good, Keith.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission met on Tuesday, October the 5th, and it was a fairly short meeting. Not a lot on the agenda, going to be a lot on the next agenda. But the Planning Commission approved the following site plans: Cheerville, Half Batch Brewery, and Crown Castle Cell Tower. So those were the three things that were on there. I may just mention, just really quickly, the planning staff is working with a consultant on the West Main Street Old Town redevelopment plan, and that is well underway. And I want to encourage everyone, and we'll be distributing it out. We've got it on the city website. There's a survey, kind of a survey monkey that's going along with this. So this is an opportunity for folks in the community to express how they would like to see things look for the future of our West Main Old Town area. So definitely take the opportunity. Survey doesn't take about 5 minutes to do, and we certainly could use the input. Also, just one other additional thing is we are working with the county and all the other cities in Sumner County on a active transportation plan that's underway, and we'll be promoting that, and when there's meetings and opportunities for surveys on that, and that's to encourage and look at potential connectivity of our green belts and our bikeways and walking trails and sidewalks among the communities. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I
Keith,
have.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Alderman Peterson, anything else?
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Chairman Robertson, Capital Projects.
Thank you. Last week, the Capital Projects Committee met, and we had a report on several of the projects that this city is trying to accomplish. Staff gave us a good update. Just quickly, the light signal synchronization, the city staff has completed all of their work, and it's at the state level now, and as soon as the state approves, it will go out for bids, and depending on the bid, we may have to budget additional funds. We don't know how much, the bid, since it's been a couple of years since we started down this road, at least. So we may have to come back and address that. Next is, I guess, the biggest shock that we had was the Walton Ferry Old Shackle realignment. As you're aware, the original tip, and I don't even know how far back this goes, maybe to Methuselah, but the current funding in the tip is $3.15 million, and that's an 80-20 split. TDOT has come back with an amendment to that estimate, and now instead of $3 million, it's $15 million to do that project. It appears, staff explained, it appears that they have changed the scope. They have included over $1 million for compensation for CSX, the railroad. And they also plan to go from Main Street to Noakes Road, I believe. So there appears to be a lot of change to the original design, which may run up the cost. But Mrs. Locke is working hard to try to find out from TDOT where that is. And once we get the final answers, we'll have a committee meeting and bring that back to you. But needless to say, until we get it worked out, or until we get more information, we're not going to be doing any additional work on that project until we get more clarification. I think Chairman Campbell or Alderman Campbell has a question, or?
I just want to bring in the fact that that's an MPO project, and we need to look at all of our MPO projects that seem to take 20 years to come to fruition. Because, like you said, $3.5 million to 15.
Yeah.
So you think of all the Rockland Road, the railroad underpass at CSX, all these projects that are taking 10, 15, 20 years of original, it's $3 million.
Yep.
No, it's 15 now.
Yeah.
And they're saying they don't want to throw in any extra funding. So we either need to be expediting these programs as they come through the city of Hendersonville to move them forward, or we just need to say, hey, we're done with MPO. Y'all have a nice day. We'll figure out at our own pace and our own speed how we can do it.
And staff is going to try to get an increase in the tip.
Yes, sir.
But still, the 20% of 15 million, we don't have that money in the budget.
No, sir.
So it's, if we move forward on this project, it's going to cost the city a lot more.
Yeah. And it's been on the books for over 30 years. I mean, it was talked about when I was in high school, and probably 20 years ago or more that is when it was actually put on the books. So here we are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Inline hockey rinks. We had a report from the consultant that he expects to be finished by the middle of December. That caused a lot of angst because Director Gilley has a tournament the middle of December, and so the contractor is going to try his best to beat that date so that we can start using the inline hockey rinks. Now, to date, and I think this is real important, and I wanted to make sure the board is aware of this. To date, the change orders for the inline hockey rinks have accounted to $124,000. And now it's my understanding that we've used up our contingency, but we've also, staff, to their credit, they have reduced the scope. They've saved $30,000 on eliminating a sidewalk. So we're doing our best to try to come up with ways, the staff is, and we're pushing them to try to look at areas that they may cut in other areas to try to save that. I asked the contractor, do they expect any more change orders? And he said no, he did not expect any. So we're gonna hold him to that. The net change expenses is with the savings that the staff has is approximately $96,000. And so that's why this $43,000 tonight, that's part of it. That's why that we brought this forward today. So I think on a project of $2.8 million, that's really not a big variance for a project that big. And I want to commend the staff from Director Gilley to Mr. Eckenroth, to Sarah, everybody that's working on this is trying their best to hold down the cost. Fire Station 7, quick update on that. Chief Bush told us that we can expect significantly higher cost for Fire Station 7. And I think he gave us the magnitude of probably up to 60% more than we had expected. So, we're looking at some big decisions moving forward on these capital projects. And this committee, we're committed to keeping this board informed. And if you have any questions, please talk to Mr. Eckenroth or to the staff if you have any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman Robertson, thank you. I'm going to follow that up with my committee report on the, I'm sorry, Chairman Skidmore, question
Yeah,
for
I
Mr.
just
Robertson.
want to, how do I put this and not make it sound what it's going to come out? But I'm just going to go ahead and say it. So what you're telling us as the chairman, that we're over budget on the fire hall and we're over budget on the ice hockey rink? Is that what you're saying to me?
On the fire station, we don't have a cost yet. This is just what Chief Bush, I think, was estimating, that the cost because of construction and labor, everything is going up. So the original architect's estimate of what the price for Fire Station 7 is going to be higher. Now, we will not know exactly how much higher until we get the architect's drawings and, I guess, put it out for bid, Mr. Eckenroth. But I don't want to throw any surprises, is that we are looking at more cost for Station 7 than we had originally planned. Now, the inline hockey rinks, we had some contingency money, probably didn't have enough. We've gone through that, and we're trying to hold down any additional additions.
Any expenditures, okay.
But yes, you're correct. We are over budget on the inline hockey rinks, as hard as the staff is working to control those costs.
All right. I wasn't trying to criticize you.
fine.
I just,
That's
I
good.
wanted to make sure I have it clear in my mind.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Alderman Skidmore, Chairman Skidmore, thank you. Chairman Robertson, thank you. I'll follow up with my committee that we added to the agenda in that, my committee report, and that's the committee to explore a partnership with the county for fire station number 7. Not much has really happened. That went to the, committee for the county 6 weeks ago or so. It was not received well. The chairman of the budget committee discussed that with in some other committees. He is committed to going forward with it. The county attorney has asked us to explain some of the requests that we have in that memorandum of understanding. We feel like that memorandum of understanding somewhat speaks for itself in what we're requesting, and part of their problem is some of the problem we have right here is that we're asking them to pay for the whole fire hall. Well, the fire hall just went from estimated 2.8 to 4.2. I think I have those numbers sort of in round estimates there. But we also asked them to cover the cost of a fire engine as well as change some of their codes. And we asked them an awful lot. We thought we could justify all of those. We heard back from the county attorney that wants that justification, so we're going to do that. And then I'll get with Chris Taylor, who's the county commissioner and chairman of the budget committee, and ask him to take it back to the budget committee. And hopefully we'll get some movement on that and get a partnership with the county. It's going to be hard to get them to agree with everything that we've asked them, but we're going to continue to pursue it. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the possibility of incorporating Shackle Island Volunteer Fire Department into the city?
Ooh.
That might be a discussion for another time, but.
None would be the answer. None would be the answer, I think, unless you want to make all of them city employees. You know, that's the only way you could do it. We have professional firefighters, and they're trained, and we have standards, and we have rules, and we have hiring procedures, and the only way you could incorporate them as a part of our fire department would be to hire them.
And even then, association could still continue to exist that we can't forcibly take over.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't take the territory over. I mean, we can't annex anybody at this point. As far as the land, it would just be the people. Yeah. They could still serve out there, but that would not be a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Appreciate that question. That ends my MOU report, and let's go to the Chief of Operations report. And I'll be back with a mayor report in just a second.
I have some good news for tonight. As far as paving goes, Trace and Public Works, they've been working steady through our paving list. So For paving or milling the next 2 weeks, we have Hickory Hills, Hillside, Hillside Court, and Georgetown scheduled. So those should happen over the next 2 weeks, either to pave them or to mill them to get ready to pave. As far as drainage projects, we've completed a few. Recently, we've completed 400 feet of ditch and riprap at 162 Snug Harbor. 210 Connie, we finished some new catch basins and pipe out there. We're still working on Berrywood at Cherokee. There's a gas utility we have to lower, but that's a substantial project that Trace and the crew are getting done over there. And 192 Gatone, they're setting some new drain pipes, and our crews have been out to jet various culverts under driveways that were clogged up. So I'd like to thank Trace and Public Works team for working hard on that. As Keith mentioned, the Planning Commission approved a site plan for a cell tower at Fire Station number 4. So Crown Castle will be working towards getting that operational so that there's not a gap in service when the tower comes down at Indian Lake Elementary School. We still have multiple job postings open for the fire department, Public Works, and Parks. But I think the best news that we have tonight is with trash collection. We've been on schedule recently. There was a job fair, and Waste Pro is currently going through a month-long process for 2 new drivers that they acquired that are going to be exclusively set up to service existing trash routes in Hendersonville. So we're going to have 2 new drivers on board, so when people go on vacation or get sick or call out, we have some more staff with Waste Pro. So that was the good news for tonight. Anyway, that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. My mayoral report, first off, I failed to, when I was acknowledged for the work I had done for the paving of Big Station Camp Boulevard, I failed to acknowledge the Public Works Committee, the Public Works staff, as well as the aldermen from Ward 5, and their encouragement. When I thought what I had was a pretty foolish idea, several other people said it wasn't quite as foolish as I thought it was. So I appreciate that support. Other item that I need to bring up is that we currently have a meeting scheduled. Our second meeting in November is 2 days before Thanksgiving, and our second meeting in December is 3 days after Christmas. We typically cancel that second one in December. The one in November, we've gone sort of back and forth on that one. Do you want to have a discussion on that? The one in November, I think, is most important that we discuss because that is that's 6 weeks away, and we have some items going through Planning Commission, going through committee that we need to give all those organizations some direction on when we're going to be meeting. So our second meeting in November is 2 days before Thanksgiving, and our second meeting in December is 3 days after Christmas. Alderman Cunningham.
I'd like to make a motion that we cancel the second meeting in December.
Okay. We have a motion from Alderman Cunningham and a second from Alderman Petrelli that we cancel the second meeting in December, which is December 28th. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of canceling our second meeting in December, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Passes unanimously. We'll go back to the conversation about, thank you, Alderman Cunningham and Alderman Petrelli, the second meeting in November, which is November 23rd. I think we move on to the next item. I'll entertain a motion. Okay, Alderman Edwards.
To cancel that second meeting in November.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second to cancel the second meeting in November. Here's what I don't want to happen, is I don't want us to have a meeting and not have a quorum and have to cancel it and put off some items and then have to have a special meeting. That's what I don't want to happen. Any other discussion on canceling the second meeting in November? Alderman Cunningham, I'll come to you in a second.
Mayor, I don't feel comfortable voting on that now. Would you be able to give us an idea what agenda items might come up for that meeting?
Yeah,
Closer to that date?
I'm going to look at Keith because he's going to have the best idea. Do you have an idea? I'm sorry? Oh. We will have we likely will have a request for a project in Freehill Business Park that is timely.
Okay.
So, very good question. So maybe what I ask the maker of the motion, the person who seconded it, is to also ask me to schedule a special meeting. And I'll get with Keith to figure out the best time of that special meeting. It will be further away from Thanksgiving is what I would do.
Okay, I'll include that as part of my motion.
Okay,
So
thank
if we
you,
were to,
Mayor.
so, okay, so the motion is going to be to cancel on the 23rd, but to ask me to find a time for a special meeting, a second meeting in November? Yeah, Keith, can you come up here? And
Yeah, maybe if we can do that and then also have a general understanding that if something goes to general committee, the 2-week rule, we may not, if you have a special meeting, it may be a week after general committee or something like that. So all of our items are going to need to go through general, just to have a general acknowledgement of that.
so it not only would be possibly waiving the 2-week rule, it might be something where if we schedule a special meeting, it might literally be 2 days or maybe a week between the time it hits the general committee and then the board. So right now, Alderman Edwards, your motion is to cancel the meeting on the 23rd and ask me to look for a time for a special meeting if necessary.
Correct.
Okay, and who seconded, was it Alderman Campbell, special, seconded?
November the 30th work? I mean, that's the 5th,
You're right.
Tuesday of the month. I mean, it's a week out later.
That's 5 days after Thanksgiving as opposed to 2 days before.
Yes, sir. That's why I was throwing it out there. Yes, sir, I'm fine with what.
Can we keep the if necessary in there?
If necessary, that's fine.
Okay,
I will amend my motion to say that we'll have it on the 30th if necessary.
and we're going to cancel on the 23rd.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, Alderman Cunningham, any, you good with that? Okay.
And I'm seconding the second.
Okay, so Alderman Brown,
I just think that's too hard. I think we keep our meetings as scheduled in November personally, unless we already know 3 or 4 people that would like to be out of town. It's, okay, Pat, go on and go. That still leaves 12 people, so
I absolutely agree.
I can't vote for that.
That meeting, the meeting that we're going to have, the second meeting of November, is imperative that we have a quorum. So, any other discussion? So our motion is to cancel the second meeting in November, the regular second meeting in November, and hold a special meeting on the 30th if necessary. Alderman Robertson.
Fails. We're going to be, when are we going to be meeting?
The 23rd of November.
Okay.
The 9th and the 23rd of November. If it fails. No, if it fails, we'll vote on the, yeah. Alderman Peterson.
Can we just make the motion to have a meeting on the 9th and the 30th?
We could do that.
Not if necessary, just the 9th and the 30th.
We could-
Cancel the 23rd and reschedule it for the 30th.
We could do that, but only I can call a special meeting. If you want to make that motion, I would just say request that the mayor schedule a special meeting, and if it passes by majority, I will call a special meeting. But right now, the motion we have on the floor, unless you want to amend it, the motion we have on the floor is to cancel on the 23rd and to ask me to schedule one on the 30th if necessary. Rush, you're thinking, I can tell. Okay. Alderman Cunningham.
In order for us to have a special meeting, you would have to poll, or Annette would have to poll all the aldermen to see if they can make it, right?
If y'all
Isn't that rule
vote,
still in effect?
it is, but I'll tell you, if y'all vote for me to call a special meeting on the 30th, I think we've just pulled the board.
Well, I'm kind of second guessing now whether I want to go for that or not.
Okay.
I would be more comfortable in 2 weeks if we vote on that.
Okay.
To see what, like I said, in 2 weeks we'll be more knowledgeable about the time-sensitive items that might be coming up.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Collins.
Can we just, raise your hand if you're not going to be here? on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, because we're all assuming everybody's out of town, but
Is that a vote?
it's Miss Alderman Campbell.
Why don't you go ahead and vote on the motion?
So,
It
yeah,
can fail.
the best thing we need to do is vote on this motion. If it passes, we've dispensed of that. If it fails, we can still take up another motion regarding this.
In 2 weeks.
Well, I only saw one person raise their hand.
We could take up another motion tonight, or we could take up another motion in 2 weeks. So, so the motion we have is to cancel the meeting on the 23rd and to ask me to schedule a special meeting on the 30th if necessary. Okay. So we're going to call the roll on this one. I think we remember how to do this. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye when Annette calls your name. Those opposed, please say no. We'll just do the roll.
Brown.
No.
Campbell.
Aye.
Collins. No. Cunningham. No. Dixon. No. Edwards.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Petrelli. Yes. Robertson.
Yes.
Skidmore. Yes. Waters. Clary.
Yes.
Okay. 4, 9, and 4.
So what passed is we will not have a meeting on the 23rd. I may call a special meeting on the 30th. It sort of depends on what happens with Planning Commission, as well as with other items that might come before, that might be ready to come before us. So, Alderman Cunningham,
What about like our committee meetings?
that's totally up to the chairman. I don't call committee meetings, chairman do that. No.
All right, well, then I have to poll my committee and see if
Do
they
you-
can make it on the 30th. Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking over here or down here in the penalty box to see if somebody will make a motion. Alderman Peterson. Alderman Peterson, motion to adjourn. A second, I believe that was from Alderman Hayes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. As opposed, please say no. We're